Hey, folks, how's it going? Hope you're all doing fantastic. Hope you had a wonderful weekend thus far. Hope you're having a fantastic Sunday. Thank you all for hanging out today. David Dempster, James 2, Blim Blim, Rice Cooker 2000, Swati, VX Free Flight Productions, and of course our old friend Hazaru. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hope you're all doing fantastic. Thanks for hanging out today. So we're doing something a little different today. We're flying a flight simulator that does not receive a ton of attention in the flight sim community. In fact, well, it kind of reflects the situation in real life as well. In real life, the glider community as a percentage of certified pilots in the U.S. is an incredibly tiny percent. So I think the total number of certified private pilots, or at least pilots that have a private pilot license, or at least a student pilot license in the U.S. is about 400,000. Might be about 500,000 actually. And the number of glider pilots is about 17 to 19,000. Depending on which year you look at the numbers from. So it's a very, very small community in real life, and it certainly is a relatively small hobby in flight simming as well. So we're flying a simulator that I don't think I've shown on my channel before, but glider pilots, at least those of us who are glider pilots in real life, we swear by the simulator because it's such a fantastically detailed depiction of what it's like to actually soar as far as simulators go. So there's no other simulator that comes close to simulating what gliding really feels like, and the way thermals develop, clouds form, mature, and dissipate in real life. There's no other simulator that even remotely comes close. So what you're watching right now is actually a replay of a flight I did a few days ago, just to kind of have something for the intro scene here. But what we're going to do is we're going to hop out of this replay in a couple of minutes once we've finished going through the introductions, and we'll talk through the menus for the the initial launch menus for the sim, and we'll talk through kind of a little bit of what glider flying is all about, and we'll talk through a few technical details that might be interesting to some folks in the audience, I know for sure, like glide polars, etc. And then we'll actually hop in the sim. We'll do an aero tow. We'll get towed aloft by an aircraft that the sim picks for us, and then we'll do some thermaling. If time permits later, we'll reset the sim, change the winds to permit us to do some ridge soaring, and then we'll call it a day. So that's our plan today. The glider we're flying today is this fantastic Polish glider. When it comes to making quality gliders, the Eastern Europeans do it best. So the Germans make some fantastic gliders, and then you've got companies all over Eastern Europe. There's a this glider, the Diana 2, was made by a company in Poland. I forgot which one, but it's a fantastic glider. I think it has a glide ratio of, if I'm not mistaken, about 50-1, which is absolutely fantastic. And we're going to get to probe some of the fantastic gliding qualities of this beautiful glider today. So this terrain, if you don't recognize it, this is Nephi, Utah, one of the premier gliding soaring destinations in the country. There's the airport of Nephi, Utah. Uniform 14 is the identifier below us, and that's the airport we're going to be launching from once we actually quit the replay and hop into the sim here. All right, great, Rice Cooker. That is fantastic to hear. All right, so let's go ahead and stop the replay here. Actually, 1 second. I'm just going to do one thing here real quick. I'm just going to hop into the stream starting soon now scene here just momentarily, because there's something I need to do on my desktop here. So give me 1 second while I set some things up. All right. Okay, fantastic. All right, let me hop back into the Condor scene there. Okay, all right, we're back. Okay, so this is what the initial sort of launch window looks like when you open it up. So very, very straightforward. This is a deceptively simple looking sim. It definitely doesn't have the complications that come with P3D and X-Plane. You don't have to deal with some of the really complicated sort of tweaking and things like that that you have to do, especially in P3D. It's a relatively straightforward sim, but it's deceptively simple. There's a lot of very, very complicated mathematics and computations that go on behind the scenes to accurately depict cloud formation, the development of thermals, ridge lift, and the effect on the sailplane and things like that. So there's a number of things you're going to see here on this menu. First thing I'm going to go do is go to setup here because I had the sounds turned off for the intro. I'm going to turn that back on all the way. And if you decide to get the simulator, there's a fantastic flight school essentially here. So there's a whole bunch of lessons that you can tap into to discover all the ins and outs, at least, initially, of flying a sailplane. And these are pretty true to real life, to be quite honest with you. There's some minor differences here and there, but for the most part, I know folks who've flown Condor and then taken their first glider lesson have noticed just how much of Condor is actually true to real life. So this is a fantastic set of lessons here for various kinds of soaring, various kinds of facets of glider operations. So pretty cool. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go to free flight here, and we're going to set things up for a flight in Nephi, Utah today. All right, so what you can do, you can actually set up a task. So if I wanted to, I could set up a whole bunch of different waypoints that I could want to fly between. I could set a time, like a race window when the race should start. There's actually an online, there's a glider racing league that's available online. So in real life, I mentioned on some of my prior streams, gliding is a real sport. So there are glider competitions all around the world where folks compete to see who can get the fastest around a course. And so there actually are online racing leagues where you'll find real-world glider pilots who actually participate in competitions. And those pilots you'll find will actually be on these online racing leagues, keeping their skills sharp in Condor. That's how good the sim is. So I can point you to some of those resources a bit later. But anyway, we're here in Nephi, Utah. This is a freeware scenery landscape for Condor. There's a whole bunch of these that are available, but this is an amazing coverage area. All the way from down south here, at the very, very south of Utah, going all the way up north to Salt Lake City, actually, north of Salt Lake City and the southern part of the Great Salt Lake. So, but the center of the scenery here is Nephi, Utah, which is where, for those of you who watch Bruno Vessel's channel on YouTube, that's where he's based, I believe. That's where he flies out of. So that's where we're going to be flying out of today. And I have set the weather conditions very, very favorably for soaring, some very, very favorable soaring weather today. So we've got some very, very strong thermals, pretty light winds, although we can bump the winds up later if we want to try out a little bit of ridge soaring. But we've got some very strong thermals. And the reason for that is because this was an intro to Condor, and I figured it might be a bit easier to start off with something with the situation with the very, very strong conditions where we can really, really take the glider up high and really kind of, put it through its paces and have some fun. No wave lift today, not really, and a little bit of cirrus clouds way up high, but we're all good there. And this is the glider we're going to be flying today. It's a Diana 2 glider, as I mentioned. It's a Polish glider. Hey, Boki, good to see you. Welcome on board. Thanks for hanging out with us today. It's a Diana 2 glider, like I mentioned. So the glide ratio is 50 to 1. That means for every mile that you're up in the air, you can glide 50 miles in front of you, theoretically, assuming completely calm wind conditions, assuming that you're not running into sinking or rising air. In real life, and you don't see this in sims like P3D, and it's hardly, it's there in X-Plane, but it's barely noticeable in X-Plane, to be honest with you. It's probably going to be much more noticeable in the new Microsoft Flight Simulator if the weather engine is really as detailed as they claim it is. But essentially, in real life, air masses are always sinking and rising, right? So you have localized areas of sink. You have localized areas of
pretty good.
Rice Cooker 2000 with the sound commands. Oh, by the way, for those of you who weren't on our night stream a few weeks ago, or not a few weeks ago, God, I'm not thinking straight. Those of you who weren't on our night stream back on Wednesday, actually, obviously, because you couldn't make it, it was pretty early in the morning or late at night in Europe. I've actually introduced, I've set up a Streamlabs chatbot that has a whole bunch of sound commands that you can access. These are obviously on a timer, right? So hopefully that command works. It should, theoretically. But there's a whole bunch of sound commands. So this is a brand new feature there, James, too. So we've got that. We've got a few funny ones. This one is...
Excuse me while I whip this
Mohammed.
out.
Mohammed, everyone, welcome on board. We've got a whole bunch of sound commands, basically. We've got, hey, we've got...
How you doing?
Goodbye.
Hasta la vista, baby.
It takes me a while to catch up on chat sometimes, so that way, in case somebody's leaving and I don't catch you in time, that way you can at least let me know you're signing off, things like that. Yeah, that's right, David Dempster. We've got a special guest star today. It's Larry David. For some reason, the commands function is not working. I don't know why. It should be working, actually. 1 second here. Let me just pull this up here. Yeah, that's the one, right? Yeah, commands. So it should be working. I don't know why it's not pulling up the commands. Anyway,
Trusting every aspect of our lives to a giant computer was the smartest thing we ever did.
Lego Studios 1912, welcome on board. Hope you're doing well. Anyway, it is what it is. So the FMC is your favorite there, Hazaru. There you go. We've also got autopilot, which we can use later. But anyway, hey, forget about it.
That you and Frank were planning to disconnect.
For some reason, the commands, the exclamation mark commands function is not working. But I'll point you through the most relevant ones a bit later, so no big deal. Anyway, let's get back to the soaring thing here. The autopilot one should find a lot of use when we fly the Airbus, right? But anyway, so this is a fantastic glider, right? Best glide ratio or glide ratio of 50-1, and that's at your maximum L over D speed, which we'll talk about in a second. But let's see, we've got a minimum speed, which is essentially the stall speed is 33 knots. Pretty low stall speed when you think about it, right? And a max speed of 149 knots. And maneuvering speed 97, that's speed in a lot of turbulence, right? Maximum deflection of controls. Empty mass, gliders are notoriously incredibly light, right? The empty mass is just 400 pounds on the Diana 2. Wingspan of 50 feet and maximum mass of 1,100 pounds. So that includes ballast plus passenger, which is pretty remarkable when you think about it. The glider can actually carry more than the empty weight of the glider. That is pretty remarkable when you think about it. And you can carry 63 gallons of water ballast if you need to. We could talk about water ballast in a second. But let's talk through the next thing I wanted to show you here. So this gets a bit technical, but it's worth discussing. And I think you guys know I like technical stuff because I'm an engineer myself, actually, and a pilot as well. So I like technical stuff. And this is something actually that all glider pilots learn. If you get your license as a glider pilot, everybody knows what this chart depicts. This is a glide polar. What it is essentially is a plot of, so a glider has no engine, right? When you think, obviously, there are some motor gliders, but gliders, when they're operating under soaring flight, essentially with the engine, if it's a motor glider with the engine stowed or the engine not running, all gliders are essentially, they have a certain rate of sink at a certain airspeed, and that is what this graph plots. So the x-axis up top, that is your speed in knots, right? So you've got 0 to, let's say, about 130, actually maybe about 140 all the way to the end there. And the y-axis is your rate of sink in knots. Now, you may be thinking, why is the rate of sink in knots? Because the VSI, obviously, the vertical speed indicators, or variometer rather, in a glider is going to show your vertical speed in feet per second. That works out just fine, actually, because in reality, the conversion between knots to feet per second, or feet per minute rather, not feet per second, feet per minute, the conversion between knots to feet per minute is actually about 1-to-1. It's a slight difference there, but it's about 1-to-1. So if you see 0.97 knots, that is about 97 feet per minute. So essentially what this shows you is the initial part of this graph here, where the graph actually starts. That is your stall speed. So stall speed was about 33 knots. And then the curve immediately starts climbing. And then it flattens out. The very flat portion of that curve, where it's the most flattest, that is your minimum sink airspeed. That is the airspeed at which, if you're thermaling or if you're in still air, that is the speed at which you can stay aloft the longest, right? So if I'm at, let's say, 1,000 feet above the ground, if I'm at the minimum sink airspeed, which is about 39 to 40 knots, let's say about 40 knots. At 40 knots, I know that it's going to take me about, let's say, 10 minutes before I can actually get down to the ground, right? If I'm 1,000 feet in the air, it's going to take 1,000 divided by about 100 feet per minute. So it's going to take me about 10 minutes to get down to the ground. That's how good this glide, that's how long the glider can stay up at that airspeed. And then you get down to this little line here, right, where it says, or this little point here. And you see there's dashed lines connecting the 48 knot point on the x-axis and the 97 feet per minute, or 0.97 knots on the y-axis. That is your max L/D, or best glide speed. Best glide speed gives you the maximum range for your glider. So if you're in still air, air that's not rising or sinking, you want to be that speed in order to maximize your distance for your glide. So that's max L/D. That's another way to look at it. And the way you calculate that essentially is you plot the tangent of this curve from the origin of the chart. So that's how you do that. And then, of course, you'll notice that as the glider goes faster, what happens? Naturally, you start to sink faster too, right? So that makes sense. Now, there's something really interesting here about this that I wanted to point out before we actually hopped in the glider and started flying. James 2, no, I don't think so. I don't think it's the same glider that FSX and X-Plane 11 have. But essentially, these gliders, as I mentioned, they actually fly in competitions. And in order to fly in competitions, what they can do is they can actually take on water ballast. So they can actually add weight to the glider. You can actually add about 550 pounds of water ballast to the glider, which is pretty amazing when you think about it, right? 550 pounds of water. Now, why would you add weight to the glider, right? When you add weight to an airplane, what happens? You increase your stall speed, you decrease your, what do you call it? You increase your minimum sink airspeed in the glider, you increase your max L/D speed. But if you notice something, as I increase the weight by adding water ballast, the curve, the actual nature of the curve doesn't change. The curve stays exactly the same. The only thing that changes is that the curve moves, down and away from the origin of the axis. So what that means is you have to fly slightly faster, or actually a lot faster, at your maximum water ballast weight, but your glide ratio stays exactly the same. So that means at the same altitude that you were at, you can glide about the same distance that you were able to before, but you're just going to be, at a faster speed. So that's kind of interesting to note. All right. Anyway, I think that's about all I want to show you for now. We'll talk. We'll come back to glide polars, obviously, and we'll talk about. This is just theory, obviously. We're going to talk about the actual practical implication of this once we're airborne. All right. Then you've got a whole bunch of things you can set up here, like thermal helpers, etc. I'm going to disable all the helpers because I don't really need that. And we're going to climb up to an aero tow height of, let's say, about 3,000 feet. That can work. In real life, you'd probably, be off a little bit quicker. And let's have an aero tow rope length of 200 feet. Okay, that works. All right, let's go ahead and start the flight here. And we'll hop in the glider cockpit and we'll get going shortly. James 2 says, well, you sure love to get DJ to teach you aerodynamics for your aircraft technician license. Do you need to study aerodynamics for your license there, James 2? That's interesting. I actually didn't know you needed to do that. Okay, once again, this is the Diana 2 glider, right? So that's what it looks like. On the ground, some gliders, not all, have either, like little pads, like scrub pads, to that can kind of wear naturally, or they have little wheels on the tips of the wings. And that's because the gliders have such long wings, and the mains, the main wheel, there's typically one main wheel and one small tail wheel in the back. So when the glider comes to stop on the ground, it's actually lying on either wingtip. So in order to prevent the wingtip from wearing too quickly, you might have, like a little small wheel there, or a little pad, or like a wear pad on the wingtip, the bottom of the wingtip there, to prevent that from scratching the the fiberglass or the composite surface of the wing. And it looks like we're getting a tow from I'm not sure what that is. Might be a pipistrel, but that's what we're getting a tow from today. So let's talk through the cockpit inside here. All right, so very, very simple layout here. This is a super simple layout in a glider cockpit. We don't have an attitude indicator, obviously, because your eye's out all the time. You don't need an attitude indicator. You're not supposed to get inside the cloud, ever. You're not supposed to ever lose visual references in a glider, so there's no need for an attitude indicator. All you have here is an airspeed indicator. That's in the top right. You have an altimeter. That's the bottom right there, or if you look at the main instruments there, and then you've got the chronometer below that with the clock. You've got the turn coordinator, which I'm not going to be referencing a whole lot because I've got a yaw string up top, which we'll talk about in a second. Then we've got an audio variometer. You'll hear the audio variometer right now actually going off. That constant tone that you're hearing, that indicates that we're in neither rising nor sinking air. And that tone is going to get sadder once we go into sinking air, and it's going to make a lot of very, very happy sounds once we get into rising air. And above that, you've got another variometer. So that's what we have there. And then we've got a little PDA here, personal, essentially like a little iPad sort of thing there. And that helps me, see some things that I need. It helps me see the actual rate of sink, the average rate of sink in a thermal, things like that. It helps me see the winds, distance to the next waypoint in a course, things like that. So it's a little handy-dandy GPS type thing, essentially. And up top, you may notice that there's this, there's this little string there that's slightly waving in the wind there. That yaw string is super helpful when I'm keeping my eyes out to make sure that I'm properly coordinated, right? So you've got these rudder pedals, obviously. In the glider, you're almost kind of laying back. The glider, because the wings are so long, essentially there's a risk of adverse yaws are really, really, it's a very real thing in a glider. So that's why you have to be properly coordinated during turns in a glider, because if you don't get enough rudder during a turn in a glider, the glider will start doing some really interesting things in terms of roll and bank. Okay. Anything else I want to talk about here? Oh yeah, so something else about the glider, obviously. We've got speed brakes, or spoiler rather. Actually, these are dive brakes. Actually, they're not really spoilers. They're dive brakes because they're kind of a bit further back on the wing. But they're the dive brakes in the glider. Let's take a better look at that in the cockpit. There they are. A little bit too sensitive here with the POV hat switch, but those are the dive brakes. So we can use that to later on, in case we need to, get ourselves down a bit quicker during the landing or the descent. The dive brakes are kind of what you use to help increase your rate of descent. James 2 was saying, yes, among many other things like turbines. Yes, that's right, James 2. I can imagine it's not easy getting or going into that field for sure. Does this sim consist only of fixed wing gliders, or does ultralight part? Yes, VX, it's only fixed wing gliders as far as I know. I haven't seen ultralight. Are you talking about? I think I know what you're talking about. Hang gliders, right? Is that what you're talking about? No, it's only fixed wing gliders as far as I know. I haven't seen any hang gliders or things like that in here. Although I might be mistaken, I need to look through the hangar that they have, but I don't think they have anything else in here. James 2, yes, you do. So there's actually a comm radio down there. You see it at the very bottom of the panel there. There is a comm radio. Or a there's a radio there. Some gliders actually have a transponder, which is helpful if you're gliding in close proximity to Class Bravo airspace. Most controllers would actually prefer that a glider be squawking, in close proximity to Class Bravo, rather than just be completely hidden away and not be visible on radar at all, right? Other than as a primary return. Okay. Anyway. Or other than as a raw, radar return, right? So anyway, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have the tow plane hook up there. So essentially, the tow plane is going to pull up in front of us. It's going to hook up a tow rope. The tow rope is about 200 feet long, and The tow plane will then start accelerating down the runway. We're going to accelerate behind him, obviously, as he pulls us forward. The glider does not have an engine, so obviously we either need a winch to tow us aloft, or we need another airplane to tow us aloft, so that's why we have a tow plane. And in real life, I've been on both ends of this, obviously. I'm a tow pilot as well in real life, so I have been on both ends of the rope. so it's super interesting learning the ins and outs of towing from both ends. But anyway, the glider is actually going to get airborne a lot quicker than the tow plane. So you'll find that I'll be airborne and then I'll be sort of like, leveling off, kind of keeping a very low altitude above the ground right behind the tow plane until the tow plane gets aloft. And then when the tow plane gets aloft, I'm going to be kind of maintaining position behind the tow plane until, hopefully I get into some lift. So in real life, tow pilots are usually pretty experienced glider pilots themselves. And so tow pilots are pretty adept at putting the glider in position to release in a thermal. But I don't think the tow planes in Condor are that intelligent. So we might have to release outside of a thermal if you're close enough to one and then head for one. So that is going to be our plan. All right, let's go ahead and get going here. And I'm going to catch up on chat here real quick before we get going. James 2 says you're currently studying the turbine part so you can pass that first exam. Awesome, James 2. Fantastic. And James 2 says you've seen gliders on flight radar here in Spain. Yeah, so there's a lot more soaring going on in Europe than over here in the US for sure. VX Free Fly Productions was saying, do you need a PPL or any other form of rating to operate fixed-wing gliders? You need a PPL for that, VX. So you need a private pilot license glider. So if you already have a PPL, then you can essentially just get a glider rating added onto that. So you can extend the private pilot license to cover gliders as well. So you need a lot less time, obviously, if you've started out a powered aircraft to transition to gliders, and the same thing the other way for the most part. Okay, let's get going here. We've been blabbing away far too long. So what we're going to do is we're just going to get airborne, then we're going to do some soaring, and we'll have some fun. And when we come back down, by the way, we might do is sort of a wimpy version, a really wimpy version of the Bob Hoover routine, right? And you'll know what I'm talking about once we get back down. Okay, let's get going here. Let's go ready for takeoff, and the tow plane should start hooking up here in a second. Boy, this hat switch is super sensitive. But here comes the tow plane. That sounds like a Rotax engine there. It's definitely an LSA, right? Okay. Tow plane should be hooking up here. We've checked our flight controls. I should have done that earlier. The canopy is closed and locked. Ready to go. Okay, tow plane should start pulling us forward here. So I'm just going to level the wings, stay lined up behind the tow plane. And we're airborne just like that. And so I'm just going to stay behind the tow plane here. Tow plane's aloft. And I'm just going to stay behind the tow plane as best I can. Obviously, you don't get the same seat of the pants feel in the sim that you get in real life. That helps you stay lined up. Let's go and get the gear up. And we'll just stay behind the tow plane here. And that sound you hear, that's the audio variometer, essentially indicating that we're climbing. Okay, as the tow plane turns, what I'm going to do is essentially line up the nose of the glider with the outer wingtip of the tow plane there. The left wingtip when we're turning to the right. Okay, there we go, out of the turn. And once again, I'm just going to stay behind the tow plane and slightly above it. The reason I want to stay slightly above the tow plane is because, obviously, you've heard of vague turbulence. Vague turbulence is a real thing, right? So that tow plane is generating a ton of prop wash and the wake from its wings. And so if I get too low, I'm not sure this is modeled in Condor, I think it is. If I get too low, we'll actually end up in the wake of that tow plane. Actually, maybe it's not modeled. But in real life, if you actually end up too low behind the tow plane, you will feel that wake. The airplane will start getting jostled around a ton, and you'll feel the wake of that tow plane. Okay, but we'll get back in position here, and let's see. We're headed towards a pretty nice looking cloud there. So we'll head for that cloud, and then we'll do some soaring in that cloud. Hajru was saying, I'm not sure in the US, but gliders are more commonly launched via winch than by tow in England. Yeah, that's totally true. So yeah, winch launches are not very common in the US for sure there, Hajru. I've only done it once. I've only done a winch launch once, and that was in Hawaii at Dillingham Airfield on the island of Oahu, which is where we're going to be flying out of next, actually. Not Dillingham Airfield, but the island of Oahu for our the next flight that we do on the stream. But that's the only place I know of where I personally have done a winch launch. Okay. Let's make sure we follow the tow plane here. Don't want a rope break. Getting a little out of position there. And I think I felt a bit of a thermal there, so I'm going to release as soon as we straighten out. And we'll head back to find that thermal. Okay, let's go ahead and release. So the tow plane is going to turn to the left and down. I'm going to turn to the right and climb. All right, and let's see, where was that? There was that cloud. So we'll try and head towards that and see if we can find some lift. So there's a bit of lift right there, so let's see if we can find that lift again. And wherever there's lift, there's usually a little bit of sink around it. So there's the lift. So what I'm going to do is slow down to the minimum sink airspeed as best as I can. And I'm going to straighten out here for just a little bit, get into the strongest part of the thermal, and then I'm going to start flying circles in the thermal. And sometimes you might be turning the wrong way, and I think what happened here is I turned the wrong way, or I tried to center the thermal either too early or too late. So what we have to do right now is try and find the center, the strongest portion of lift in that thermal. So I'm going to start heading slightly to the north there, and as soon as I hear the thermal starting to strengthen there, I'm going to start to straighten out here a little bit and see if we can recenter the thermal. And sometimes, you know, you might just be flying in the wrong thermal, because some thermals, like I mentioned, so thermals are indicated in real life and the sim as well by clouds, right? And Condor actually simulates how clouds form, how clouds mature, cumulus clouds like these, and how clouds dissipate over time. And so, one second, I'm trying to center this thermal here as best I can. It's a pretty weak thermal, I can tell. This is not exactly the best one. Either that, or I'm definitely not in the right position. There's getting a little better here. There we go. So I'm going to straighten out here just a little bit. There we go. Really, really strong now. Straighten out just a little bit, and then I'll turn back. So, as the clouds start to dissipate and break up, the thermal weakens, and eventually the thermal actually turns into a whole bunch of sinking air. Okay, so the strongest portion of this thermal is a little bit further to the north there, it looks like. So what I'm going to do is turn to the north a little bit, towards Mount Nebo there. And I'm going to straighten out for about 2 to 3 seconds. And then I'm going to turn back. There we go. That's a lot better, actually. I'm going to have to trim a little bit here. Perfect, actually. You can hear that variometer making a lot of very, very happy sounds there as we find the strongest portion of lift in this thermal. And you can see we've obviously I've set the conditions here to be extremely favorable for soaring today, but the elevation of Nephi Airport was about 5,020 feet, and we're already at we released at about 6,700 feet, if I remember correctly. We're already at 8,500 feet and still climbing. So on a good soaring day, especially out west, boy, you can see how quickly you can find some good lift and soar in it. Rice Cooker says you're back with a lot of snacks. That is fantastic, Rice Cooker. That is always good to hear. All right, we're in a pretty nice thermal here, so we're just going to soar in this thermal until we gain a good amount of altitude, and then we're going to figure out what our next course of action is. You may notice from that PDA on the right side of the screen that I'm not flying perfect circles. That's because we have a little bit of wind. And so with wind, obviously, you're going to see that the thermal actually, rises at a slight angle. It rises up at the cloud at a slight angle. And so your circles have to take that into account. So my circles are actually not based on what I'm seeing on the PDA. It's kind of based on what I'm hearing from the audio variometer there. Okay, we're kind of dropping out of the strongest portion of lift there, it looks like, so I'm going to try and recenter it by going a little bit further to the south there. But yeah, this keeps you pretty busy. It keeps you pretty active. Sailplane flying in real life, it looks so calm and serene from the ground, right, when you see a sailplane pilot or a sailplane overhead. But boy, I gotta tell you, it keeps you really busy and on your toes, literally on your toes, in terms of you're constantly working the rudder pedals. Dropping out of the strongest portion of lift there, I'm going to go a little bit further to the southwest and center the thermal there. But boy, it keeps you on your toes. I'm usually sweating like crazy in real life at the end of a long day of thermaling. Here we go. Okay, getting back. Now, of course, I always want to take a look at the cloud overhead, make sure it's not weakening and breaking up. Because if the cloud is breaking up, that means the thermal is weakening and it will eventually turn into a region of sink. So, there we go. Getting a little better here. But you can tell this thermal might be breaking up slightly. So once I get to, let's say, about 11,500 feet, we'll look for the next thermal and the next cloud we want to do some soaring under. So that's my goal, 11,500 feet in this thermal. And then we'll go for the next one. Micah, welcome to you. Hope you're doing well, Micah. Thanks for hanging out with us today. James 2 is saying, you hope we get gliders in Flight Simulator. Absolutely there, James 2. I think it'd be fantastic to see some gliders in Microsoft Flight Simulator. If the weather engine is really as detailed as they say it is, I don't see any reason why they shouldn't have a good thermal simulation, right? So hopefully that ends up being the case, and somebody develops some good glider add-ons for the new Microsoft Flight Simulator as well. All right, we're through my goal of 11,500. What I'm going to do is turn towards the east there, and I'm going to start heading towards Mount Nebo. And my goal is to get over the top of Mount Nebo there and do some thermaling on the other side of the mountain range here and head towards the valley to the east of the mountain. So let's head now for this cloud straight up ahead, and we'll gain maybe, let's say, another, if we can, maybe another 1,000 to 2,000 feet of altitude, and then we'll start heading over to the east and see if we can do some soaring on the other side of the mountain there. So that's our plan. And I'll catch up on chat as best as I can here. It's a lot to do, a lot to focus on. The flyby views are pretty cool. Nearly everybody does cameras in their sim better than P3D does. P3D has a horrible camera system. Condor, even Condor does it better. X-Plane 11 has a pretty good camera system with all the flybys and everything by default, right? Okay, so we're going to head towards this cloud here. And once we get underneath it, hopefully we can gain a little bit more altitude. And my goal, if I can get up to 14,000 feet, what I'm going to do then is head over the mountain and see if we can do some soaring on the other side of the mountain. So that is my plan. James 2 says you've tried it in X-Plane and it is fun, but you're not very good at catching thermals. So it's really, really difficult to do that in X-Plane 11 there for sure, James 2. It's really, really difficult for sure. X-Plane 11, you know, I'm going to be honest, as an engineer myself, as somebody who has a lot of familiarity with aerodynamics, you know, blade element theory, it's not the answer to life, the universe, and everything that laminar research tries to claim it is, right? Honestly, there's so many areas where it falls short. Okay, we're running into a region of a ton of sink here. that could be either a good thing or a really good thing or a really bad thing. It could be a really good thing because it could indicate there's some very, very strong lift on the other side of the sink within the thermal. And we ran into just a little bit of lift there as we got under the cloud. So what I'm going to do is try and see if we can center it. We've ran into the sink all again on the other side. There was a thermal there. Let's see if we can catch another little bit of it. Otherwise, I'm going to try and turn back and see if we can catch it again. Yeah, that cloud must have a really nice strong thermal under it, so I'm going to head back to that one. When you see clouds like that with a really nice dark flat base in real life, that indicates a very, very strong thermal underneath it usually. So we'll head back in that direction and see if we can catch that lift again. If not, we'll try another one. Sometimes it can be hit or miss, even in real life. VX Free Flight says there are some great glider ops down here in northeast Alabama on the edge of the low Appalachians. I recommend you check it out someday. Absolutely. So, you know, obviously, right, I've read some of Tom Knopf's books. Tom Knopf, of course, is based further up in the Appalachians, up in Julian, Pennsylvania, right, close to State College where Penn State is. And Tom Knopf, of course, was one of the most well-known glider pilots and glider pilot instructors in the country. Yeah, so you've got all those fantastic ridges as well, in addition to, you know, occasionally you get some good thermaling days, but you got those fantastic ridges. Oh, there's that thermal again. Okay, so we'll slow down in the thermal. There we go. All right, like I told you, there had to be some good lift here, I figured. So we'll try turning in. Obviously that didn't work. We turned the wrong way is what I think happened. So instead of turning the other way, what we're going to do is go all the way around, straighten out as the thermal strengthens. So as the thermal starts to strengthen here, I'm going to straighten out and maintain this course for about 3 or 4 seconds. And then we'll turn back. And we'll see if he can center the thermal. My guess is the strongest part of this thermal is further to the east. That's my guess. So let's see if he can center this thermal here. There we go. Yeah, just like I suspected, the strongest part of the thermal is further to the east. So, and it's probably further to the southeast there. So my guess is it's a little bit further south. Yeah, it's definitely further south. So I'm gonna turn towards the south here, and we'll see if he can center the thermal. So once I'm on a roughly southern heading there, what I'm gonna do is level off, or not level off, but straighten out, and hear that variometer sing there, and we'll start turning. Yeah, it's probably a tighter thermal than we had last time, but this is what thermaling is like in real life, by the way. It takes a little bit of heat seeking, it takes a little bit of searching to discover where the strongest part of the thermal is. So we've discovered the strongest part of the thermal, so what we're going to do is try and center it. Now it really, really helps, of course, to have those indications on a PDA. If you don't have that in real life, you know, you're just kind of going off of what you're hearing, what you're seeing around you. So you're looking up at the cloud to see where you are in relation to the cloud. You're looking down at the ground to look at landmarks in the ground and trying to figure out where you are in relation to the strongest part of where you think thermal is going to be. All right, there we go. And you can see we've already gained a ton of altitude here. We're up at 12,670 feet, where you need supplemental oxygen actually at this point. In this part of the world, I'm guessing most pilots that fly around here probably have supplemental oxygen. Nephi itself is at an elevation of 5,000 feet, like I mentioned. But coming back to what you were saying there, VX, yeah, so I can imagine they've got some pretty strong thermals down there in the south for sure. Absolutely. Now, VX, do you do any soaring yourself in real life? Do you do any glider flying? Oops, I think we dropped out of the thermal there. Either that or... No, actually, it's pretty... that cloud is not dissipating, so I think we just dropped out of it. Poor technique from the pilot. I'm doing a bad job of maintaining my minimum sync airspeed in the thermal here. So it's a bad sort of air, attitude control and airspeed control from the pilot is what the issue was. Okay, we just dropped out of the thermal again. Let's try and recenter it. James 2, no worries, we'll catch you in a bit. Okay, there we go. Recentering it. Ooh, wow, we're really rocketing up now. 13,500 feet and climbing. We're definitely in supplemental oxygen territory here. The effects of hypoxia would start dawning on you about this point. If you were actually soaring this high. And by the way, there's always a risk, and actually, you know, I'm going to let this happen. We're going to get high enough where we'll get sucked up into the cloud, and you can see kind of what happens when that occurs. It's in a sim, so it's always fun to try that out just a little bit and see what that looks like. So we're going to get sucked up into this cloud. David Tempster was saying the force is strong in this one. There you go. David, try exclamation mark bad feeling. Try putting that command in. That's a pretty funny one, I think you folks might enjoy. So I'm going to let myself get sucked up into this cloud here. Look-Star, good to see you, my friend. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for hanging out with us. Try exclamation mark, exclamation mark,
I got a
bad there you go.
About this.
That's Han Solo, of course. Okay, so we're getting up into the cloud here, it feels like. I just want it to occur because I want you to see what happens to the visibility as we get into the cloud. You see how it's getting hazier and hazier? That's a pretty nice simulation. Try exclamation mark faith. That's another funny one. VX was saying you do not. You hope to get more into it after you get out of school. Okay, so now we're in a cloud. What I want to do is get out of the cloud as quickly as I can. So I'm going to extend the dive brakes. I'm going to try and straighten out. I'm going to try and avoid getting too much airspeed, and hopefully we can get out of this cloud as quickly as we can, because I am IFR right now. I don't have any visual references, and thankfully, you know, I wasn't too, like, I'm getting out of the cloud now, but thankfully I wasn't in too steep a bank as I got out of the cloud. So that worked out okay. But in real life, by the way, that is a definite risk. That's why, you know, those cloud clearance limits that you have in Class Echo airspace, right, which is not the stuff about 10,000 or 12,500, but the regular stuff, right? 1,000 feet below clouds. Correction, 1,000 feet above, 2,000 feet, or no, what is it? I think it's 1,000 feet below, 500 about, 2,000 horizontal, if I remember that correctly. But those cloud clearance limits are there for a reason, so you always want to respect that. So I just wanted to show what would happen if you actually ended up in a cloud in Condor. It's a pretty good simulation of it, by the way. You know, obviously I've never done it in a glider. Not supposed to do it, not allowed to do it. But if you do it in a powered airplane, that's kind of what it feels like. Things just go completely, you know, white and gray, depending on, or, you know, orange or pink, depending on the time of day. All right, so let's go ahead now, because we're at a high enough altitude. What we're going to do is we're going to try and make it over Mount Nebo here, and we're going to head for that cloud on the other side of Mount Nebo, and we'll do a little bit of soaring there, and then what we'll do is we'll head back to Nephi Airport down there, and we'll do a very, very wimpy version of the Bob Hoover routine, and that'll be a ton of fun. And then we'll land at Nephi, and we'll call it a day in terms of Condor soaring. And we'll hop into prepared and do some 717 flying in Hawaii. That's going to be our plan. Micah, this is a glider simulator. So if you look in the description, that has all the details. It is a simulator called Condor. Condor is the name of the simulator that I'm using right now. And glider pilots in real life, as I was mentioning earlier, swear by this simulator. It's a fantastic simulator. It's very, very true to real life in terms of how the glider behaves, in terms of how the clouds and thermals form, mature, and dissipate. So let's see actually if we can find some examples of this. So some of the smaller clouds that you can see there, so you see a very tiny little wisp of a cloud there in between these two clouds, just off the left nose of the airplane there. So there's a smaller, tiny little cloud there. That cloud is probably just forming. Usually the strongest thermals are found under small clouds like that are just forming. But the issue with soaring under those clouds is that essentially the thermals are really, really strong, but they're also really, really narrow in terms of the radius of the thermal. So if you want to soar in those types of thermals, you've got to fly a very, very tight circle. And then you've got clouds that are mature, obviously like this big one that we were soaring under earlier. So there you have some pretty strong, but also very, very wide thermals, you know, that are super, super easy to soar under. And then I'm not sure if you can find an example of this. Oh yeah, right there actually. Just off to the right side of the airplane there, before you get to another bigger cloud, you see a cloud that looks like it's breaking up. That's an example of a dissipating cloud and a thermal that's probably either disappearing or has turned completely into sinking air at this point. So that is pretty cool, you know, that Condor actually models that. Condor actually models how thermals and clouds form, mature, and dissipate. So that's pretty cool. Jonas Frux-Fretzel, welcome on board. That's exactly what I was saying, but thanks for saying the same thing I was saying. But thanks for hanging out with us today, I guess. Micah says, is Nephi the only location, or are there other locations? There are lots of other locations, Micah. So there's lots of other locations as well. There are tons of other locations. So Micah, there's just like you have P3D sceneries and X-Plane 11 sceneries, there are a lot of freeware depositories of sceneries for Condor as well. So I think Condor.eu is one where you can find a bunch of freeware landscapes, and Nephi doesn't come by default. That's a freeware landscape that you have to obtain for the simulator. So Jonas, if you were watching my video and not just thinking of what to say, you probably would have noticed that's exactly what I was doing and describing. Okay, let's see. Micah, I'm not sure. It's been a couple of years since I bought it. You can probably look it up. I think it's probably around 40 or 50 bucks if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so there's a little bit of sinking air here, which indicates that we're probably coming up on the thermal. There we go. There's the thermal. So we're in the thermal. I'm just going to let us get into the strongest portion of it as best I can, and then I'm going to start turning. So we're coming out the other side, it feels like. Oh no, actually, still pretty strong. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start centering the thermal here. Okay, now we're coming out of the thermal, so what that indicates is that the strongest portion of the thermal there might be slightly to the south there. So we'll start heading towards the stronger portion there. And of course, you know, depending on which wing is in the stronger part of the thermal, that can actually push you away from the strongest portion of lift, by the way. That's another thing that's modeled in Condor. So if you notice, sometimes I struggle a little bit to get the bank steeper or shallower, and that's because the lift is acting differently on the different wings. So the lift, if the thermal is strongest on the left wing, might actually be pushing that wing up. So that is another really cool thing. The flight dynamics in the simulator are fantastically modeled, which is just absolutely amazing. Okay, we're doing great here. Oops, dropping out of it just a little bit. Okay, there we go. Getting back into it. Okay, let's hop out of it actually, because the cloud is right above us actually, and we're not going to be able to maintain those cloud clearance limits. So let's do this. Let's go do a little bit of running right along the ridges here at Mount Nebo. And by the way, one other thing I wanted to mention about thermaling, sometimes when the winds are high enough, you'll see the clouds actually arranging into nice little streets. So the clouds will actually all line up. In fact, you can see a little bit of that, although the winds are not high enough to cause streeting in real life. In real life, sometimes you'll see the clouds lining up like they are here. So if you look behind us and to the left of the airplane, you can see a line of clouds. So in real life, when the winds are high enough, that actually happens. And when that happens, you'll essentially, if your course of flight is along that line of clouds, you can just follow that line of clouds and fly under a mostly uninterrupted stretch of lift. So you can keep your speed up, you can fly super fast and not lose any altitude or even gain altitude as you're flying along that cloud street, which is super cool. In fact, there's a fantastic documentary. I'm going to show you a trailer for that once we do our setting up things for the P3D flight next. There's a fantastic trailer for this documentary called Cloud Street on PBS that we're going to check out here in a little bit. Going a little too fast here. Oh, and by the way, one other thing to note, there's actually reflex flaps on this glider. So reflex flaps are essentially negative flaps. So the flaps, you can't really see it because it's only -2 degrees, but the flaps can actually turn negative, and that allows you to cruise at a faster speed, which is kind of cool. So that way, if you're cruising between thermals, you can cruise at a faster speed. But this simulator doesn't look half bad, actually, considering just how good the flight dynamics engine is. Let's see, what else did I miss here? So VX was saying earlier, honestly, don't know how different it is than powered flight from a lift perspective. There's some differences there, VX. You know, so believe it or not, you can actually thermal a powered airplane, right? Right? So you can bring the power back to idle or near idle in a Cessna 172, and I've done this. And if you find a strong enough thermal in a Cessna 172, and one of my friends who's a glider instructor, we actually did this in a 172 once. We found a thermal, or we found a good soaring day, and we were flying in a Cessna 172. And we just decided to try some thermaling at idle power in a 172, and you can actually do it. A 172 is super heavy, obviously, has a much lower L/D ratio, right? Or much, you know, it doesn't glide as well as an actual sailplane, obviously. But we were able to climb at about 200 feet per minute, which is stunning when you think about how much a 172 weighs and how low the wingspan is, right? How short the wingspan is of a 172 compared to a glider. But it was pretty amazing. You can actually thermal a 172 in a really strong thermal. So lift works the same way, you know, whether and thermals work the same way, whether it's a glider or a powered airplane. In fact, in real life,
All systems have been alerted to your presence, sir.
in fact, chances are, I'm just trying to figure out what my game plan is. I'm trying to lose altitude here as I come into Nephi, and I'm trying to figure out how to do the Bob Hoover routine. In fact, we can practice the Bob Hoover routine here just very quickly. It's not the full Bob Hoover routine, obviously, but it's kind of a really, really wimpy version of it. So we're going to lose altitude, and then we're going to climb, and then do a little bit of fun stuff here over the ridge or the mountain here. Hello, Xar, welcome back. But so, you know, even if you fly a jetliner in real life, chances are you felt a thermal, right? If you ever feel what are called air pockets sometimes, or turbulence, sometimes, you know, if it's not high altitude turbulence, obviously, you know, if it's relatively low level turbulence when you're coming into land or taking off, etc., chances are, if it's happening on a hot summer day, chances are what you felt is a thermal. So thermals can still act on, you know, really heavy, large aircraft as well. You just kind of feel it in a different way. The thing is, you're spending so little time in a thermal in a small airplane. Okay, so what we're going to do is essentially translate all that energy now into altitude. Let's do a quick loop-de-loop here. you can actually totally do you know, aerobatics in most gliders. Actually, most gliders have some pretty high you know, rated. They're high, you know, they have some pretty high you know, G load limits. So we'll try that again. So we'll get super close to this this mountain ridge here. Would never do this in real life, obviously, but let's get super close to this ridge here. Whoops! Whoa, no. Okay, I tested flutter and I broke the airplane. Okay, I wasn't paying enough attention to my altitude there, so we're gonna go try this again. I wasn't paying enough attention to airspeed, so we broke the airplane. Oh well, we'll try this again.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
See, there you go. That's another use of that. There is another use of that. That worked out nicely. Okay, let's try this again. Oh boy, we'll try this again. Okay, so once again, we're gonna get an aero tow, and we'll try this again. We're obviously not gonna get as high as we did last time, but we're just gonna do a quick little flight here and then come back into land. I should have gotten my dive brakes out there too. That's another thing I could have done to help slow down in a hurry. Alright, let's try this again. Once again, aero tow. I'm just going to level the wings here. The glider is going to get airborne way before the tow plane does. So we're already airborne. I'm just going to stay in position behind the tow plane. Tow plane is now airborne. Let's get the gear up. And let's see. We'll do a little bit more soaring, and then we'll try some fun stuff before we come into land. So I tried to pull back as quickly as I could there so that I didn't hit the never exceed speed, but I think I was already past it. So that's what happens when you go to the never exceed speed in a glider. The wings can break right off. Whoop, I'm just a little bit too outside there. Want to make sure my nose is pointed right at the wingtip of the left wingtip there of the tow plane when it's in a right bank, or a right turn rather. There we go. And yeah, so what I think is happening here with the tow plane is flying the tow plane is flying a preset route, so it's not chasing any thermals. It's flying a preset route, unfortunately. In real life, you know, the tow pilot, and I've done this plenty of times when I've towed gliders up, you actually search for the best places to find lift, and you try to position a glider pilot to release in lift, if possible. But unfortunately, Condor does not simulate that. David Dempster was saying your idea of aerobatics and ours are obviously two very different things. Indeed, they are, David. They totally are. Clearly, as demonstrated. Jonas, yes, I am. I've been a glider pilot for about 3 or 4 years now. I don't have as much time in gliders, obviously, as I do in powered airplanes. I've been flying powered airplanes for about 15 years, but I've been flying gliders about 4 years now. Okay, so let's see. That looks pretty good right there. So I'm going to release right here, actually. And, whoops. That's pretty cool that it actually showed the time. I'm just going to try and turn away from the tow plane there so that there's no risk of a collision. And we'll turn towards that cloud that we saw earlier and try to do a little bit of soaring behind that cloud. Okay, let's see. That cloud might be breaking up, actually. It's not very well formed, so but we'll do a little bit of soaring below it. There we go. Let's let this center. And I have a tendency to turn to the left, unfortunately. So that's an issue. Jonas, I'm not going to answer that question. That's, you know, my privacy is something I kind of value on the internet, but somewhere in the United States, and I'm going to leave it at that. Somewhere in the Western United States, I'm going to leave it at that. You know, usually on my channel, I expect people to kind of value privacy a little bit. People that want to share things are more than welcome to share things, but I tend to try not to answer questions that I don't want to answer. Okay. Boy, this is a super weak one, obviously. You can see it's kind of dissipating. So what we'll do is we'll head for that one. Oh boy, the POV hat switch is super sensitive here, unfortunately. Let's get the flaps out. Or flaps in, rather. And we'll head for this one. Or that one, rather. Oh wait, hold on. A little bit of lift here. I'm gonna milk every ounce of lift I can because all I want to do is gain some altitude. Do a little bit of fun flying here. And this is where my tendency to turn to the left always comes back to bite me. Clearly, I turned the wrong way, but that's fine. We're just going to keep the turn going all the way around as opposed to turning the other way. And we'll see if we can center the thermal on the other side here. There we go. There we go. The Vario is really, really singing now. All right. This is a nice, strong thermal. This is a super strong thermal. Anton Beckers, welcome. Whole lot to you. Welcome on board. All right, we're really gaining some altitude here, so that's awesome. So I wanted to try those maneuvers again in case you haven't noticed, and I want to try and avoid what we had last time. So we'll use the dive brakes a little bit more here, and I'm gonna stay out of the out of the extreme end of the yellow arc there on the airspeed indicator. I'm doing well, Anton. Thanks for asking. How are you doing? All right, let's see if we can get up to maybe about 11 or 12,000 feet here. Then we'll try some maneuvers, have some fun, and then we'll head back to land at Nephi. And we'll try to avoid overstressing the airframe like we did last time. Falling out of the thermal here just a little bit. And of course, hey, actually, there's something I wanted to mention earlier, which is, here's a question for all of those of you in chat. What happens to stall speed as you bank the airplane, right? And here's a hint. Once you bank the airplane, you're increasing the load factor of the airplane, right? When you're in a turn, a steep turn, you're increasing the load factor on the airplane. So what happens to stall speed when you when you enter a steep turn, and by extension, when you put the aircraft under a high load factor? So if you notice, I'm speeding up as I increase my bank. And there's a reason for that. As I steepen my bank in the turn, I'm speeding up, and there's a very good reason for that. Nobody knows? So stall speed actually goes up with weight of an airplane. And right, weight is a function of mass times acceleration. When you increase your load factor, you're essentially effectively increasing the weight of the airplane. You know, not the mass of the airplane, obviously you can't do that, but you are increasing the weight of the airplane. Yeah, Hazard, exactly, would go up. So stall speed goes up, and so when you enter a bank, what you want to do is, or a steep turn rather, what you want to do is increase your speed to make sure you don't enter a stall. So, like if I were to slow down dramatically here, you know, you'd notice that we would stall at a higher airspeed in a steep turn than we would when we're leveled out, we're straightened out. So that's another thing you kind of have to be aware as a glider pilot. The problem is you're always eyes out as a glider pilot, so you know, you're not, you know, you're just occasionally glancing at your instruments. Although I am not the most experienced glider pilot, I'm going to be honest. I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination, and I'm not going to presume to present myself as such. But what I do know is, you know, the way I was taught, essentially, steepen your when you steepen your bank in a turn, always increase your airspeed a little bit, especially if you're in slow flight, right? And when you're thermaling, usually you are in a slow flight condition. You know, you're thermaling close to your minimum sink airspeed, which is slow flight. Okay, so we're at 12,250 feet. We're dropping out of the thermal here. Not doing the best job of thermaling. Let's see if we can get back in it. There we go. There we go. Really getting into the strongest portion of lift here. That's awesome. Let's see if I can catch up on chat here. VX was saying, I assume you spin at best case, worst case you overstress the frame. No, actually, so when you're in slow flight, you probably enter either a stall. Stall is best case, right? Actually, best case VX is that you recognize it early enough and you get yourself out of it, right? You recognize it early enough, you speed up, you level out. So here's what you do. If I'm getting too close to a stall, and I'm gonna try and demonstrate this. Let's get too close to a stall here. Okay, so I'm gonna pull back on the stick on purpose. And you're gonna feel the buffet here. There's the buffet. So what I'm gonna do as soon as I feel the buffet, I'm gonna level out, I'm gonna speed up. So let's demonstrate that again. So I'm going to pull back, and you're going to see the buffet here in a second. There's the buffet. Level out, push the nose down. That's what you do. Immediately, as soon as you feel that buffet, as soon as you recognize the onset of a stall, or the, you know, the initial onset of a stall, what you do is immediately level out, push the nose down, and that way you get out of the stall. Now, so best case is you recognize the situation, get out of it. Slightly worse case is that you enter a stall, but you can recover from a stall, no problem, just the way I showed you. And then the worst case is that you enter a spin. The worst case is that you enter a spin. But you know, spin recovery is another thing you can do, of course, to get out of the spin, right? Okay, we're going to climb up to, let's say, about 15,000 maybe, and then we'll head for Mount Nebo again, and we'll try to have some more fun, and try not to induce flutter and overstress the airframe once again. So we'll try not to do that. I just wasn't paying attention to what was going on with the airspeed indicator because I was so focused on the maneuver that I wanted to execute and having a little bit of fun that I wasn't paying attention to the airspeed indicator. Obviously, it's a lot harder to read on a small screen, right, that's in front of you versus if you're flying the aircraft in real life. Okay, let's head for the mountain there once again, and we'll try and have some fun. And try not to overstress the airframe once again. Okay, let's see. Anton Beckers, yeah, totally. Anton Beckers, or David Dempster was saying, what are the outer markers of the airspeed indicator, the triangles? So, David, I'm glad you asked that. We don't have the time to discuss that because that's a super advanced topic if you're just getting started in gliders. But essentially, that's a McCready speed ring, M-A-C-C-R-E-A-D-Y. It's a speed ring, and what that lets you do essentially is calculate or determine your speed to fly between thermals. So typically, right, if we are in sync, what we're going to do is we're going to speed up to get out of that sinking air as quickly as we can. If we're in rising air, we're going to slow down to either best glide or minimum sink typically, you know, to maximize our time spent in rising air. But essentially, when you're in sinking air, you want to go as fast as you can to get out of that sink, or not as fast as you can, but as fast as you need to. And there's certain you know, speeds to which you want to go at for certain rates of sink. I'm going super fast here because obviously I have tons of altitude to lose. The airport is right there, so I don't really care about my sink rate at this point. I'm like nearly 8,000 foot over the airport at this point, so I've got tons of altitude to play around with here and have some fun with. But essentially, that speed ring, the McCready speed ring that's around the airspeed indicator, what that lets you do. So essentially, I have a sense it's a very, very strong thermal day, right? The thermals today are super, super strong. So what that lets me do is essentially, that speed ring lets me estimate the thermaling, or not thermaling. That speed ring lets me estimate the strength of the next thermal. So how fast is the air going to rise in the next thermal? That speed ring lets me estimate that. And based on that, what I can do is essentially set that speed ring and fly either faster or slower. So that's what that speed ring lets me do. It's kind of a really advanced topic in soaring. By the way, the turbulence today is super light. Otherwise, I wouldn't be flying in the yellow band there. I wouldn't be flying in the yellow arc. But I'm not gonna go as fast as we did earlier. I just wasn't paying attention to the airspeed indicator earlier, which is why we induced flutter. Okay, so we're just gonna fly along this ridge here. By the way, in real life, if you're flying towards a mountain ridge, what are you definitely want to avoid, especially when the winds are kicking up? In real life, when you fly towards a mountain ridge, if you're on the downwind side of the mountain ridge, you definitely want to avoid that. You want to get away from the mountain ridge as quickly as you can. The upwind side, in a powered airplane, there's a risk, obviously, of turbulence and, essentially, potentially overstressing the airframe, even on the upwind side. But when you fly towards a mountain ridge in a powered airplane, what you want to do is approach it at a 45-degree angle. Once you cross it, immediately leave it on a 45-degree angle as well. At least that's the way I was taught. In a glider, typically you can do some ridge soaring on the upwind side of the mountain ridge. If the winds are strong enough. Typically, if the winds are more than 12 knots, coming in almost perpendicular to the mountain ridge, what you can do is do a little bit of ridge soaring and gain some ridge lift along that mountain ridge. Okay, I'm just having some fun here to bleed off some altitude before we head back into Nephi and make up for the overstressing the airframe that we did earlier. So that's what we're doing here. Okay. All right, let's turn here. Go this way. By the way, this is something we would never do in real life, or at least if you do it, you're going to keep it to yourself, right? You're never ever going to talk about it ever again or reveal it to anyone if you did this in real life, because it's totally not legal. At least it wouldn't be. I know I wouldn't dare do it in this do this in real life. Okay, so this is all about energy management. This is all about kind of converting kinetic energy into potential energy, right? So I'm trading off airspeed for altitude here. So I'm gaining a ton of altitude, and then I can come back down and do that all over again. It's just amazing how much you can get out of a glider. It's really, really quite something. Because they've got such, these advanced, especially modern, fiberglass composite gliders have such amazing glide ratios. It is truly amazing just how far you can glide in a modern sailplane. Okay, so we're just going to kind of follow along the ridge here, and then we'll come back into land on Nephi. So we'll do a fun little, I've got the smoke going there, by the way. That's another thing you can do in this sim, which is kind of cool. You've actually got smoke that you can release for the wingtips. So we'll release that smoke once we come in for a low pass over the runway at Nephi. That's what I wanted to show you. So that's what I meant by a wimpy kind of Bob Hoover routine. We're going to do a low pass over the runway, turn on the smoke, and then we'll turn back to downwind for runway 17, and then we'll fly a pattern in, like downwind to base, base to final, and we'll land on 17. And we'll try to do a spot landing right on the markers on 17 there at Nephi. So that's going to be our plan. Okay, let's get the speed brakes out. Actually, you know what? Let's keep the speed brakes in for now. And I'll get the speed brakes out as we get a little bit closer. I know I missed a ton in chat here, folks. Hazru says only know it from 172 when it beeps at you in a turn. Okay, gotcha. Okay, yeah. So pretty much the same principle right there, Hazru. Hazru. So yeah, like like I mentioned earlier, it's not the stall speed and max speed markings. It's actually a McCready speed ring. So you can look this up. It's MACCREADY. And the McCready speed ring. For those of you who haven't heard of it, if you've heard of Paul McCready, that's who came up with the McCready speed ring. Paul McCready is one of the most legendary aerospace engineers of all time. So Paul McCready has done some truly, truly amazing things in the aerospace engineering world, especially when it comes to, airplanes like this, like gliders and things like that. In fact, he's a very, very famous glider pilot as well, in addition to being a noted aerospace engineer. But Paul McCready was the one who came up with the McCready speed ring that allows you to calculate your speed to fly between thermals. Now, it's not always the most accurate thing in the world, but you see how steeply we can dive with the dive brakes out. That's why they call them dive brakes, I guess. But you see how steeply we're diving here. And so what we're going to do here is just kind of a fun little exercise in energy management, right? We're going to do a low pass over the runway. And what we're going to do a low pass over the runway literally at maybe 100, maybe at 50 feet above the ground. And then we're going to level off, climb back up, level off on downwind. And and then we're going to fly, a downwind base and final. So that's our plan. So this is all about energy management. Smoke on. Okay, let's turn back to downwind here. Gear coming down. Actually, hold on. Let's get the gear up. I'm gonna put the gear down in a little bit here. Okay, downwind, gear coming down. Oh boy, I hate this hat switch. It's super sensitive. Okay, so what we're gonna do is just fly a pattern here. Okay, there's the threshold. I'm going to try and aim for the markers. That's going to be my touchdown point if I can make it. And I'll catch up on chat once we're down on the ground, folks. Okay, let's go ahead and turn base here. Start getting the speed brakes out. There we go. All the way around to final. So busy working the hat switch there that so I'm going to use my dive brakes here to kind of control my rate of descent. And I'm going to aim to touch down right in the middle of the markers there if I can. Okay, there we go. Touchdown. Just going to keep the wings level here. A little bit of a bounce there. And no go around a glider. That is correct there, James 2. Absolutely no going around a glider. And what we're going to do, this is typically what we do in gliders when we land on paved runways. We taxi off into the grass. This is completely normal. And I'm going to level the wings here. And try to come to a complete stop here before the before I let the wingtip drop. So that worked out. That was textbook. That worked out perfectly. That worked out perfectly. That was textbook. I was able to get the airplane to a complete stop and then let the wingtip drop. That worked out nicely. So we're down to the ground. I'm going to go to the replay here in a second. No, you don't there, James 2. As I mentioned earlier, there's actually little wheels here on the wingtips. There's a wheel there, and there's another wheel here. Actually, there's a better view of this. There, so you can see the wheel right there, right, on the wingtip. So those two wheels in the wingtips prevent them from getting scuffed up when you touch down. Or when you let the wingtip rest on the ground there. Some gliders don't have, wheels like that, because those wheels contribute to drag. Some gliders just have little pads, like wear pads that you put on the bottom of the wingtip there. So all the gliders that I've flown, I think I've only flown one or two types that have little wheels at the bottom of the wings. Most of the gliders that I've flown just have little wear pads. So that must be a thing with the Diana 2 in particular, I guess. That's my guess. Okay, let's do a replay there of that little maneuver. So I'm going to exit. Let's go ahead, and I think you have to actually have to save the replay there. So let's save it as B. Okay, and let's go to main menu, view replay, and let's go to B. Let's view that. And actually, we can check out the other one that I did earlier too, because that one was a much nicer landing. But let's do this one real quick. Thanks there, David. Much appreciated. So this was a little different, obviously, than some of our other streams, but folks have been asking for a soaring flight, glider flight, a stream in Condor for quite a while, so I figured it was time to do one. so that's the origin of that. Okay, I wanted to go all the way back to there. Okay. All right, this way we can check out the low speed or the high speed pass here over the runway. The low altitude high speed pass. Let's check out some flybys. That's pretty cool. So I wouldn't call it gliding 101 there. Ooh, I love the smoke effects. That's super cool. So that's a nice little exercise in energy management, right? You saw what we did there. We traded off airspeed for altitude. That's what we did there. So we traded off airspeed for altitude, got ourselves on downwind, and then we just managed our energy all the way down to touchdown. But you saw, we were flying downwind here at a pretty low altitude. We're probably at about, here, let's see. Yeah, we're just literally just 300 feet over the ground on downwind. And I flew a complete, downwind to base to final here, just like you would in a powered airplane. And I was able to, it's amazing what you can do with 300 feet in a high-performance glider. Truly amazing. In fact, when you're towing the glider aloft, when you're getting an aero tow, if the rope breaks at 200 feet, you can actually make that impossible turn back to the runway and land the runway. If the winds allow it, of course. But it really is quite something. So you can see me kind of modulating the dive brakes there in order to control my rate of descent. It's a lot harder to do in the sim, to be honest with you, because you don't get the same feel that you do in the real airplane. And obviously the controls are different, they feel different in the sim versus in the real airplane. Yeah, so that worked out relatively nicely. Not as soft as I would have liked on that touchdown, but it worked out nicely. And then I just kind of, when I slow down enough, I roll off the runway here, or I turn off the runway, but you can see how I'm just kind of balancing it on the main wheel. In fact, the tail wheel had not touched down until just then. So I'm literally flying it on just one wheel. That was a wheelie all the way down, which is pretty amazing. Lokestar says you call that a Bruno Vassell maneuver. There you go. So you saw how we came to a complete stop there before I got the wingtip down. That is textbook. That is exactly what you want to be doing in real life. So I'm glad that worked out, actually. I didn't think I'd be able to get that to work in the sim. But when I get that to work in real life, because I'm not a super experienced glider pilot in real life, like I said, I would call myself very, very inexperienced in comparison to some of the folks that I know who are really amazing glider pilots. Whenever I do that in real life, I'm literally cheering in the airplane, right? If the canopy wasn't so close to my head, I'd probably be raising my hands over my head. Yes, I got the airplane to a complete stop before the wingtip came down. So that worked out pretty nicely. Let's check. I wanted to check out a quick replay of a prior landing that I did, because that one was a lot nicer. That touched down really, really softly. And then we'll switch to P3D, folks, and we'll fly in Hawaii in the TFDi 717. Okay. All right. Let's fast forward this a little bit. Okay, so this was another high-speed pass. So you can see me kind of diving for the runway there. Like a dive bomber. It's amazing how quickly these things can descend with the dive brakes out, and how far they can glide with the dive brakes in. It truly is amazing. the range of things that you can do with the glider. James 2 says, well, it was a nice gliding 101. That wasn't the intention here, James 2. It was more of an intro to Condor and using Condor. That was my intention, in case folks were interested in trying out some gliding in Condor, because nothing else in the simming world comes close to real-world gliding, to be quite frank with you. Nothing else comes close. So it's more of an intro to Condor, but I wouldn't presume to do a gliding 101. For that, I would suggest going to your local glider club or local glider port and going up with a certified flight instructor. That's what I would suggest there. Certified flight instructor glider, right? CFIG, not just your old run-of-the-mill CFI. But once again, it's really quite amazing how you can trade off airspeed for altitude, right? This is Physics 101, and there's no better way to learn Physics 101 than to do it in a glider, to be quite frank with you. You know, one of the things I love about glider flying, right, it's such a pure kind of flying. And it's one of the reasons you see so many airline pilots, either retired or current airline pilots in glider clubs. You know, the glider clubs that I've been part of have always had tons of airline pilots, and they all tell me the reason they like gliding so much is because it's such a pure kind of flying. You know, versus flying an Airbus or heck, even most Boeings these days, you know, there's so much automation, so much, you know, managing the airplane and managing the flight computer versus just actually flying the airplane. And so they love gliding for just the pureness of it, you know. There's, you know, no complicated systems to manage. You're just kind of flying like the birds. In fact, you know, a lot of times when you're in thermals, you're very likely to spot a bird in a thermal, and you're likely to be flying alongside a bird. One of the coolest experiences in my life is flying alongside a falcon. So the falcon is literally like, you know, 200 or 300 feet away from me in a pretty, you know, wide thermal. This was a really nice landing. Much better than the one we had live. This was a flight I did a few days ago. But you see how long we were on that main wheel there. But yeah, so one time, this was a few years ago, I actually got to fly with a falcon, which was super cool. That was one of the coolest experiences of my life. And the falcon was actually looking right at me the whole time in the thermal. Like, you know, what is this big bird? What is this strange big bird, you know, in this thermal with me? What is it doing? The falcon was really eyeing me very suspiciously. Like, what am I doing? That was super cool. Okay, all right, that's it, folks. That's our Condor flight. I have a ton to catch up on in chat, I know, and I'll catch up on that later. But that's our Condor flight. If you have any questions on Condor, feel free to ask. You know, I'm not an expert on Condor, certainly not an expert on gliding by any stretch of the imagination. Being a real-world pilot does not make you an expert on anything. No matter how long you've been flying, any pilot that tells you they know everything is somebody you would never want to trust. But if you do have questions, feel free to ask and I'll answer as best I can. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to hop into P3D and we're going to do a flight in the TFDi 717. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my Be Right Back screen and I'm going to stay in chat for a few minutes while I start loading up the sim and then we're going to do some flying in P3D. And I'll catch up on chat while that's going on. But to those of you that joined me for the flight in Condor, much appreciated. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope it was interesting. Hope it was different anyway. And let me know if you want to see any more streams in Condor. One thing I could do at some point down the road, once I'm back into this online glider racing stuff, I haven't done it in years, but I'm thinking about getting back into it. If I get back into it, once I'm comfortable enough in it, what I'm going to do is do some streams, some glider racing streams in Condor. So that could be a ton of fun if there's interest. Okay, folks. That's right, Hazru. Also, DJ pops the champagne. Honestly, Hazru, I'm going to tell you, I don't know why, but I get a real kick out of it. Whenever I can stop that airplane, you know, or the glider without touching the wingtip to the ground, and I've come to a complete stop, it just gives me, I don't know why, I get something out of it, you know. I'm just weird that way. I get something out of it. I get an immense sense of satisfaction out of it. If I could pop some champagne, I literally would, by the way. That's the kind of guy I am. So I literally would pop some champagne if I could. That's how much I enjoy doing that. Okay, just quickly once again redoing my flight plan here for our flight in the TFDi 717. So I've just gotten that stuff in. Yeah, so the fuel load was the same I had before. Okay, fantastic. So we're just going to wait on the sim to load back up here, folks. Let me do something here real quick. I'm going to show you my desktop capture scene. That way you can see the sim loading up, and you get to experience the trials and travails of loading up a sim live on stream. So I'm going to pull that scene up here. Night Shadow, good afternoon to you. Aloha. Night Shadow says, how many hours of flight training is required to glide like that? Night Shadow, I'm not sure that was the best. That was the best demonstration of gliding. You know, we actually overstressed the airframe at one point. When I say we, I'm counting you folks as accomplices and co-conspirators in our airplane being overstressed situation there. but no, that was completely my fault. I just wasn't paying attention to the airspeed indicator. I was looking straight ahead of the mountain, and then when I felt the buffet and I felt that the airplane was overstressing, I didn't pull back fast enough in time. So that wasn't the best demonstration of gliding. But to answer your question honestly there, Night Shadow, if you have a powered pilot license, if you have a PPL in a single engine land airplane, I think you only need 10 hours. But to be honest with you, 10 hours, you know, that's an approximate. That's an approximation. In reality, you know, gliding, when you're learning how to fly initially in gliders, you spend a lot of time. You spend very, very little time actually thermaling. You spend a lot of your time, you know, essentially doing quick flights, you know, like essentially getting an aero tow or getting a winch tow if you're in your part, you know, in your part of the, or sorry, in Europe for the most part. But you get a tow in the air, and then, you know, you do some maneuvers in the air, slow flights, stalls, etc., and then you come back into land. So a lot of your time is just spent, you know, doing some very quick flights coming into land. You spend a very, very small amount of time on thermaling, typically, when you're initially training on gliders. So the time requirement is very, very low if you're just starting, or if you're transitioning from powered airplanes to gliders, in my experience. But the amount of money you spend will probably be a little high because, you know, it depends on where you're flying in the world, right? If you're flying out on the West Coast, it can be a little high depending on the glider club you're with, the glider port, or the glider school. It really kind of depends. Okay, so there we go. Oh, actually, hold on. I had a save flight here, so I'm just going to load up my save flight. All right, let's go to that one. So we're going to load that up. Just going to wait on that to load up. Okay, there we go. Hold on. I'm going to get back to the Navigraph thing here in a second. Okay, I got everything here set up the way I wanted to. Just going to load up the sim. And while the sim is loading up here, let me go back to my Be Right Back screen real quick, and let me see if I can fix the issue with Navigraph, because I'm a little surprised by that. What exactly happened? Oh, this, I know what, the token expired. I just need to sign back in. Yes, please. Open Navigraph same link. Thank you very much. Okay, there we go. There you go, Micah. Absolutely. All right, VX Free Flight was saying, honestly, it was your first look at professional glider simming with Condor. You're going to hit some gliding in FSX later just to learn the simplistics. Absolutely, VX. I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And VX, you know, I strongly recommend. Well, you know, it sounds like you're aware of some of the gliding activities that go on in your part of the world, right, in Alabama. But strongly recommend, you know, visiting your local glider port and doing like a soaring orientation flight. That's essentially what the Soaring Society of America calls discovery flights in a glider, right? The soaring orientation flight. If you haven't already done it, strongly recommend checking that out. Those are super fun. A way to kind of experience, you know, soaring flight. Jonas, absolutely. I'm glad to hear that. Not sure if you're being sarcastic, but I'm glad to hear that. Thanks for that. Lokestar says glider is a great example of the law of conservation of momentum. Absolutely there, Lokestar. Totally agree with that. Okay, let me go back to my desktop capture scene here, and you can see, once again, the trials and tribulations of loading up P3D. So this is going to take a little bit as it continues through the process. Lokestar earlier was saying you called that a Bruno Vassell maneuver. Totally, Lokestar. So for those of you who haven't seen Bruno Vassell's channel on YouTube, check it out. He does his flying right here, or where we were, in Nephi, Utah. And so he does a lot of these cool kind of energy management routines, you know, like low speed passes over the runway, trading off the airspeed for altitude to turn onto downwind, and then doing the downwind base to final turn using whatever energy the glider has remaining, which is super cool, super awesome. David Dempster was saying Condor is not too far away from you here at home. That's awesome, David. Are they based in Scotland in that case? The company that makes the simulator? That's super cool in that case. Swati was saying a very good pattern, landing exactly the desired point. Yeah, that worked out pretty well there, Swati. Thanks for watching once again. Let's see, what else did I miss here? Jonas Frooks was saying, oh, the pilot has a Breitling. Yes, indeed. Ever since, with all the marketing that's going on, right, as P3D is loaded up here, with all the marketing stuff that's going on from Breitling, totally makes sense that they would put a Breitling on the pilot's wrist. Totally makes sense. Okay, I wanted to operate the jetway here, hook up the jetway. Is that going to work? Yes, it is. Hawaiian Airlines. And by the way, if there's interest, we can do a group flight on VATSIM. You know, I'm not gonna push it, given some of the difficulties we've had in the past, or difficulty we had midweek rather with some of the internet issues. I'm not gonna push it if nobody wants to do it, but if there's interest, I'd be more than happy to do a group flight on VATSIM with you fine folks. So just feel free to let me know. Okay, I think I'm all fueled up here, so we're gonna go through the full process of starting up starting up the aircraft from a cold and dark configuration, all that kind of jazz, right? So that is going to be our plan today. Ground power unit is connected. That's fantastic. I need to pull up my checklist for the TFDi 717. So give me a couple of minutes here, folks, to go do that real quick. And then I'm going to get back to chat. I'm going to refresh my cup of Kona coffee. That's very important, as you know. And then we'll go through a full startup procedure here. We'll initiate our flight plan into the FMCs, and we'll have a nice, fun flight in the TFDi 717. So that's our plan. Let me go to some external shots here. Let me give you this some cinematic shots here, and just give me about 2 minutes. I'm going to go find a paper copy of the checklist that I have stowed away somewhere, and I'm going to refresh my cup of coffee, and then we'll do some flying in the TFDi 717. And if anybody wants to hop on VATSIM with me and do a group flight from, the details are all in the description of the video. If anybody wants to hop on VATSIM and do a group flight with me from here in beautiful Honolulu to the island of Kauai and Lihue Airport, feel free to let me know. And once I'm back, I can hop on VATSIM if that's the case. Okay, I'm going to step away here for about 3 minutes, okay? I'll be right back.
That's totally inappropriate. It's lewd, lascivious, salacious, outrageous.
All systems have been alerted to your presence, sir.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
Hey, folks, I am back. The attempts at sabotage clearly did not go very far. So, those of you who don't know, and this goes for my darling mods here, who clearly don't have my best interest at heart, apparently. My MacBook, which I use to monitor chat, is completely mobile, right? It's a laptop. so that's what I used to monitor chat, and I had it with me. I was like, wait, what? Who's sabotaging things? And then I noticed the blue wrench beside the name, and I was like, what is going on? It's time to kick Micah off the mod team, right? That's what I was thinking. Just kidding. All in good fun, I know. But I'm curious, did the sound effects work while that was going on? Boki was saying, oh, sorry about that, Boki, I missed your question earlier. SimBrief didn't want to give you a flight level over 140 for this flight. So, Boki, in real life, this flight, the flight that I'm modeling this after is actually at flight level 140. So if you look for Hawaiian 143 on FlightAware.com, the most recent flight, I think, between Honolulu and Lihue, that flight was at not flight level 140, but 14,000, right? In the US, flight levels start at 180 and above. So it was 14,000 feet was the altitude at which this route was flown. And that's because the Hawaiian Islands are very, very closely spaced together. So Kauai is only a short 100 miles away, less than 100 miles away from Oahu. So it's pretty close. And VX free flight, absolutely, you're more than welcome to join us if you want to test out your freeware 717. In fact, tell us more about this freeware 717 there. VX, I'm very, very curious to learn more about this aircraft you're developing. And I'm sure most of the folks in chat are as well. But if there's interest in joining in, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get rid of AI traffic. That saves me some precious CPU and GPU resources as well. And I'm going to hop onto VATSIM here. So let me go ahead and do that. Let's hop onto, let's go to pull up the vPilot client there. And all the information you need for the flight is in the description. Route of flight is Keola to Lihue. Just going to quickly connect here on VATSIM, so let me go ahead and do that. And while I'm doing that, there's a question I missed earlier that David Dempster was asking, is the speed ring adjustable? Yes, so absolutely, David. That's the way that speed ring works. So the speed ring is essentially mounted on top of the, like over the airspeed indicator in a way that it can actually be rotated. So depending on what you think the speed of the next thermal you're anticipating to be climbing in is going to be, you can actually rotate that speed ring and set that accordingly. So that'll give you your speed to fly to the next thermal. Now, obviously, in the sim, you know, I know exactly what the I can set exactly the speed at which the thermals are climbing and what the variation is, or the strength of thermals and what the variation is, and the strength between different thermals and things like that. But in real life, you know, the McCready speed ring will never give you the accurate speed to fly. You're kind of judging that based on your experience, and kind of based on your experience in that flight in particular. Okay, I'm just going to sign into VATSIM right now. I'm flying Hawaiian 143, unless somebody else picked that call sign, and it's a B712 is the identifier. So there we go. Just connected, and hopefully I'm not going to spawn on top of anybody. That would suck. We're at the Inter-Island Terminal, by the way, at beautiful Honolulu International. And that brings me to another question that somebody was asking. So, Night Shadow, yeah. So, yes, it is actually real Kona coffee, picked in, harvested in Hawaii, and bought in Hawaii. So, every couple of years, my family, we do we vacation in Hawaii, for a week or a couple of weeks, usually around the holidays. So that's a tradition that we have. And whenever I'm there, the first time I visited Hawaii, I got absolutely addicted to Kona coffee. Like, when I went back and I drank regular coffee, I just couldn't. I don't know what it was. I couldn't. It just wasn't for. I couldn't deal with it anymore. So every time I go to Hawaii, I stock up on Kona coffee. So I buy bags of Kona coffee, and when I run out, if I haven't visited Hawaii in a while, I go ahead and I just order Kona coffee online. But I am a big Kona coffee fan. Okay, let's do our pre-flight checks here. Let's start setting things up in the cockpit. So we'll go up top here. Let's get our battery on. There we go. External power coming on there. And let's go ahead and start up the APU there. So APU to start. Actually, hold on one second. Start pump on. I think we get the right aft fuel pump on. Okay, APU to start now. Okay, APU being started up there. And let's get the nav lights on, since we've got electrical power to the airplane. And let's wait for the APU to start up there. All right, let's see. Jonas, thank you for the kind words. Very, very much appreciate it. No worries at all. It's all good. Yeah. Sorry, Jonas. So I think no worries at all. You're probably not there anymore, but no worries at all. It's all good. It's just we've had, as a streamer, sometimes you get people that you're not quite sure what their intentions are. And sometimes when people speak a certain way, you're not quite sure whether they're just trolling or what's going on. But thank you for the kind words. I very, very much do appreciate it, and look forward, hopefully, to catching you in a future stream. You take care, my friend. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Let's see, what else did I miss in chat here? Hazru was saying you're currently en route to Palma de Mallorca in the Zeebo. Awesome there. Awesome, Hazru. Super awesome. Super awesome. David Dempster was saying, no, it's Royal Marine Condor. Oh, Royal Marine Condor base. Cadets do or did glider training there from a winch system on the base. That's awesome there, David. David, have you done any real-world flying out of curiosity? Okay, systems are powering up here. And let's see, what is the status of the APU there? APU is started up. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move the APU generator to on. Let's get the external power off. APU air on. And I think the packs go to auto, right? Yes. Okay, there we go. APU is on. I think we got the start bump off now. All right, APU is running. And one last thing I'm going to do is go up, move the IRS switches to nav. There we go. All right, and let's go to the FMC here. And let's go ahead and get our flight plan data. So this is, by the way, the Boeing 717 was not actually originally called the Boeing 717, right? I'm sure most of you aircraft enthusiasts know this. The Boeing 717 started life as the McDonnell Douglas MD-95, which was actually, this was the very very last variant of the old DC-9. So the DC-9 became the DC-9 Super 30, which turned into the MD-80, of course. And then this was a shortened version of the MD-80 with a super upgraded flight deck here that became the MD-95. And then when Boeing acquired McDonnell Douglas, it became the Boeing 717. But if the FMC system here and the autoflight system looks super similar to the MD-11, that's because the flight deck is based basically off the MD-11. So the MD-95 was McDonnell Douglas' very, very last creation, which unfortunately doesn't bear the McDonnell Douglas name. Okay, anyway, let's go to flight plan init here, and we'll start working through the super quirky FMC system. So PHNL/PHLI, and return to flight plan init. Let's do a cost index of, let's say, 40. Oops. 40. 40. Hold on a second. Oh, that's because the keyboard wasn't inputting anymore. 40. Cruising flight level of 140. Flight number 143. Hawaiian 143 is our flight number today. Let's go ahead and initialize the IRS. And our alternate is going to be Honolulu, because that's the closest Really, that's the only alternate if you're flying to Kauai. Okay. And let's see. Let's go to the next page here. Let's put in our zero fuel weight. So that's up here in the status page. Zero fuel weight is 88.2. I'm going to get that in. There we go. And takeoff CG is going to be 18.1. Because we're all fueled up and ready to go here. 18.1. And our block fuel is going to be 7.5. Alright, there we go. Got all that in. I don't think I need to get my zero fuel weight CG in because I'm not even sure where to get that information from anyway. Okay, alright, let's go to FMC here. Let's go to flight plan, and let's go ahead and get our flight plan information in. So we're going to do the Kiola 2 departure today. Runway 8 left, Kiola 2, Lihue transition, insert, and there we go. All that is in. Okay, fantastic. And lastly, let's see. I think... you know what? I'm going to figure out the arrival runway here in a second. But let's go to let's go to perf here. Let's go to takeoff/approach. Let's do a flaps 13 takeoff today. Let's do a flex of, let's say 45. There we go. And outside air temperature right now is 29 degrees Celsius. It's nice and warm here in Honolulu. 29 degrees Celsius. Oops, I need to put in 29C. Okay, there we go. Let's put in 29C. And then 0/0. Alright, there we go. And let's get in our takeoff speeds here. 116, 124, 133. Alright, fantastic. And I'm going to set the MCP there in a second. Let's go ahead and close that off. And I'll catch up on chat here. Alright, let's see. Who all do we have? Looks like we have one other person here. And we might... Actually, it looks like we have two people. There's a lot of smoke over there, so I'm assuming there's somebody over there. Not sure. I think we have at least one other person who's flying along. Let's see, what else did I miss here? Okay. Awesome there, WeX. Absolutely. I'm glad you got interested in gliding. I'm sorry, I'm catching up on chat from earlier there, but that's super awesome. Okay, let's see. What else did I miss here? Charlie's Aviation. It's a very, very short flight of just 30 minutes. Welcome, by the way. Welcome to you. VX says, yes, indeed. More information on your channel about the freeware 717 in a on it. Okay, and you plan to do a major update within the next couple of weeks. Awesome, VX. I'm sure folks who are interested in a freeware 717 are more than interested in looking that up. Super awesome if somebody's developing that. Super cool. Boki says you don't have the 717 too much. Oh, sorry, I missed that question earlier, Boki. No, no problem at all. Boki, in fact, Southwest Airlines actually flies this route that we're flying today on their 737-800s. So you can do this in a 737-800, no problem at all. So we've got time. You know how long it takes me to go through the departure briefing and setting everything up. So we've got time. If you want to hop in a 737 from Southwest Airlines, they actually do this route in real life from Honolulu to Kauai. So feel free to hop on in a PMTG 737 or a 737 of choice if you'd like. Okay, what I'm going to do here is just pull up my flight plan super quick. Just got to create a new flight here. Okay, origin airport is going to be PHNL. I'm just kind of building this out of my iPad. PHLI is the destination. Okay, there we go, create flight. And then I'm just going to load up my charts, and we're going to be good to go here in just a few short minutes. Open charts, okay. Alright, just need my airport diagram, and I need my Kiola 2 departure SID. Okay, and then I'm going to pull up my charts for PHLI. Just need my airport diagram for right now. And let's see, what are the approaches available? I think we might land on 3.5 today, quite likely. We're probably going to do the ILS 3.5. In fact, it might be fun to do the circle to land 1.7, potentially, but I don't think we're going to do that today. The winds are probably not going to favor it. We'll see what the winds are doing later. so last thing I need to do here is just kind of put in the route. 1 second. This is Kilo 2, Lihue, and that's it. We're done. Okay. All that information is in. Okay, there we go. Sorry, took me a second. All right, let's go ahead and get going here. VXS, and in short, this will probably be one of the most advanced freeware add-ons you've ever seen for FSX or P3D. That's awesome there, VX. Lokestar says, what do I do when I run out? Oh, in terms of the Kona coffee, Lokestar, I just order in online if I run out until the next time. Until the next time I can go to, what do you call it? Until the next time I can go to, go to Hawaii and get some in person. Night Shadow says your vacation to the islands was scheduled for this week. It was to be your daughter's graduation trip, but due to the Rona, you can't. Oh my God, I'm sorry to hear about that, Night Shadow. But you say maybe you can schedule again during your Christmas break. Yeah, that'd be super fantastic there, Night Shadow. Sorry to hear about that. Yeah, unfortunately, right, Hawaii has been very, very smart about this, obviously. They've been very, very, restricting travel and things like that, knowing how bad the situation is and how bad it could get, especially on such an isolated island chain. Yeah, it totally makes sense that unfortunately it hasn't worked out. Hopefully it does, though. Really hope it does. Okay, let's see. Top altitude for us is going to be 5,000 feet. Okay. And we don't have ATC online, unfortunately, so we're just going to be flying offline, obviously. Okay, 5,000 feet. And I'm going to set my heading bug here to, let's say, probably around 130 is my guess what my heading is going to be on takeoff. We want to make that immediate right turn to avoid overflying all the noise-sensitive areas in Honolulu, obviously. And let's see, I'm going to tune in 122.8 Unicom on my COM 1 there. It's going to tune that. All right, there we go, tuned in. Hazru says it's kind of odd. The flight displays look super modern, but the FMC looks quite dated. Yeah, so it's only one color, right? So that's part of the reason it looks dated. But again, it's like the old MD11 FMC. I'm trying to think. The MD80's FMC doesn't look like this. I think the MD80's FMC is a bit closer to the Boeing FMCs, if I remember correctly. But this is pretty much directly. It's almost identical to the FMC from the MD11. I'm not quite sure who makes this. I think it's Honeywell that makes this one, but I'm not quite sure. No worries there, Mike. Take your time. David Dempster says you did an intro flight which was gifted to you. That was many years ago. You're actually terrified of flying, and that was not your first, but your last flight. Love aviation, though, and have MSFS ordered. Well, that's good at least there, David. But so yeah, sorry to hear that the experience was or that you're terrified of flying. But I'm glad that at least you're satiating your interest in aviation through flight simulation. So that's super awesome. Night Shadow says you're going to wait to purchase MSFS until a more commercial aircraft can be loaded. Yeah, Night Shadow, I think that is a completely appropriate and understandable way to look at things, right? So yeah, I can totally understand that. Because out of the box, yeah, the default aircraft, I think from some of the previews that are coming out, right? Some of the default tube liners that are included in Microsoft Flight Simulator, and this is public information because of some of the things that are being released on YouTube that have been given the okay from Microsoft, right? Yeah, the default tube liners in Microsoft Flight Simulator aren't that detailed. So if you're expecting Payver level, they're not quite there just yet, unfortunately. so we got that. Okay, what we probably need to do here is start closing up some doors. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go to the exterior. Let's go ahead and get rid of the brown power unit. Don't need that anymore. Let's close the cargo doors. Okay, those are closing. I think the mechanism on these doors is pretty much identical to the MD-80 and DC-9. Cones and wheel chocks removed, and let's go ahead and close the main cabin door there. Okay, so that's being closed. All right, fantastic. Doors are closed, and the status page there is showing no door lights or anything like that, so that's good. All right. What else did I want to do here? I wanted to go through my pre-flight checklist. Okay, pre-flight checklist. Interior, exterior inspection completed. Oxygen mask checked. Voice recorder checked. Cargo smoke checked. Air conditioning panel set. Ice protection panel set. Annunciator lights checked. Passenger signs on. Let's get the seatbelts on. Flight control panel, FCP up here, is set. We've got 250 on the IAS. Heading 130 and altitude 5,000 feet. And we'll talk through the interesting facets of the auto flight system once we engage it. Flight nav instruments checked both sides. They look okay. Altimeter set 3002. Cross-check both sides. Fire warning, we'll disregard that. Not modeled. Parking brake set. Takeoff warning. Takeoff warning, basically all you do is move the throttles forward of about halfway there, forward of vertical, and if you hear that stabilizer alert, there you go. Fuel switches are off, indeed they are. Radios and transponder set. Let's set transponder there to not VFR. Let's say 2200 should be good. Okay. Radar off, aileron, rudder trim set, flight attendant briefing completed, departure briefing, we got to do that. Logbooks and QRHs on board, and we've got sufficient fuel on board for the flight. 75,000 or 7,350 pounds required. We've got 7,410 on board, so we're all good on fuel. Okay, let's set stab trim here for takeoff. We need to set stab trim to 4.9 units. So I'm just going to set 4.9 units there. Alright, 4.1, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, and 9. There we go. Stab trim set. And let's go ahead and do our departure briefing here. VX Free Flight Productions was asking runway 3 or 3.5. VX, I think I'm going to plan on 3.5. We're probably going to do the ILS 3.5 here. VX was saying you read 060 at 11 for PHLI. So, yeah, so I'm probably going to do 3.5. You know, we'll land with a slight crosswind, no big deal. Or actually a relatively large crosswind. It's going to come in from about 70 degrees off the nose, but that's fine, no big deal. Crosswind landings are always fun in Hawaii. In fact, I don't think I've actually done some real-world flying in Hawaii, by the way. You know, Cessna 172, so nothing major, not like a big airliner. But I don't think I've ever landed at any airport in Hawaii without a crosswind. So I've landed at, obviously, you know, rented from an FBO at Honolulu International right here. And so Honolulu, crosswind. Molokai, flew there, crosswind. Kalaupapa, big crosswind. And Lanai, big crosswind as well. So I've never landed at any airport in Hawaii without a major crosswind. Obviously in a 172. Okay, all right. Boki says, what's the time of day in sim? Boki, it's up to you. You know, whatever you feel like. You know, it's up to you. You can pull in real world time. Or you can do, you know, whatever time works for you. Okay, wanted to do a departure brief, so let me pull up the METAR here at Honolulu. Give me 1 second. Okay, here's our departure briefing. Winds at Honolulu, or weather at Honolulu rather. Winds are gusting, 060 at 16, gusting to 21 knots, visibility 10 statute miles. View clouds 2,500 and 5,000. Scattered at flight level 250, temperature 29, dew point 17, altimeter 3002. And we're located at the Inter-Island Terminal. We're going to be taxiing to hold short of... by the way, I'm not going to pull up my charts for this one because the TFDi 717 is pretty GPU intensive, and if I pull up my charts, I have a worry that the GPU card could crash, so I'm not going to pull up... I'm not going to pull up my charts, unfortunately, because of that. So that's unfortunate, but hey, what can you do? 1 second here. Oh, there we go. Okay, I was kind of worried that nothing was showing up on the map page here, but it is. Okay, so we're at the Inter-Island Terminal, and we're going to be taxiing to hold short of 08 left via Lima, Alpha 4, and hold short of 08 left at Alpha. And we're going to be departing via the Kiola 2 departure today. Off of 8 left, procedure, you must complete a right turn to an assigned heading within 2 nautical miles of departure end of the runway, 3.6 DME from the Honolulu VOR, and we'll cross the Coco Head VOR or across the Cocoa Head 240 radial at or above 2,500 feet. And then turn right or left heading assigned by tower, expect vectors to Keola, maintain 5,000, then via transition. Our transition is Lihue. So Keola, Grail, Napua, Lihue. And make sure those waypoints are inputted here correctly. So there is the assigned heading. For us, it's going to be 130, unless ATC pops up. Then Keola, Grail, Napua, Lihue. So that's correct. All right, fantastic. And actually, let me very quickly here do something. I'm just going to put in the ILS 35 here. Let's go ahead and insert that. That way we got that for later. Oops. Oh, wait. From Napua is what I want, actually. Okay, ILS 35 and insert Napua. Okay. Just make sure this all checks out. What I want to do here is clear. Let's clear that one, and then let's clear that one. And let's clear the SCO there. Okay, this is all looking fantastic. Alright, great. That's done. And let's see. Besides the gusty wind conditions, you know, we do have noise abatement requirements. Obviously, the city of Honolulu right on the departure path of the runway from this runway. So we want to make that right turn as quickly as we can once we're at a safe altitude. Okay, so that's our departure briefing. All right, let's go through our pushback checklist here. Doors are closed. Hydraulic pumps, let's go ahead and turn them all on. Left pump, right pump is on, transfer pump coming on, auxiliary hydraulic pump coming on. And let's get the fuel pumps on. Left, right aft pumps, and left and right forward pumps on. And fuel panel is set, transponder set to mode C here. Let's go ahead and do that. Okay, transponder squawking Charlie there. And ice protection set, and beacon coming on. Okay, and to answer your question there, I think it was Night Shadow that was asking, do the gates pull back at FSDT Honolulu? So this is GSX level 2 jetways, and yeah, so I can ask for them to be removed. So I can say operate jetways, undock jetway, and confirm selection, and the jetways will pull back. So this is like a GSX level 2 mod for FSDT Honolulu. I think by default, this scenery from FSDT does not include SO jetways. I think it's just the regular Control J jetways, right? But you have the option of downloading, you know, a config file for GSX level 2 that puts in those jetways there. And one of the interesting things I noticed was the level 2 jetways were actually docking to all the other airplanes, the AI traffic earlier, so that was super interesting. Hex 2906, awesome. Well, did you catch the earlier part of that stream? In that case, Hex, but welcome. I'm glad you enjoy a Condor stream every once in a while. I do as well. Although this is my first stream in Condor, I do a fair amount of flying in Condor every once in a while. Not as much as I would like recently, but I love Condor. I think it's, as a real-world glider pilot, I think it's a fantastic, you know, it's one of the best, it's probably the best, you know, glider simulation that's out there. As of right now, you know, the bigger, you know, simulator platforms like P3 and X-Plane 11 don't come anywhere close to simulating some of the more intricate aspects of flying gliders in real life. Anyway, all done with our pushback checklist here. Let's go ahead and request the pushback. Prepare for pushback and departure. Let's go ahead and get the packs off. And beacon is on, indeed it is. All right, so we're all ready for engine start here. It's been a while since I've started up the TFDi 717. We'll hope we get it right here.
Hello, Captain.
Awesome there, Hex. You say you fly the LS4 in real life. That's super awesome. VX says our sceneries are quite different. We may see each other in the grass. No worries at all there, VX. It's all good. Yeah, I've dealt with plenty of scenery mismatch and model matching mismatching in my time spent in the sim, so totally understandable. All good. And I'm sorry we kept you waiting that long, folks, but we'll get going here shortly. Okay, quick added pushback here. Let's push back to right about there, and we'll get going. Out of curiosity, Boki, are you joining us in the in the 737? You're more than welcome to if you'd like.
Departure check completed. Bypass pin inserted. Release parking brakes.
Okay, brakes released.
Commencing push. All engines clear. Start at will.
Engine's clear. Let's go ahead and start up. We'll start up the right engine first. So let's go ahead and pull the right start switch there. Okay, there's oil pressure. N2 there. Engine is motoring. Let's go ahead and move the fuel switch into the on position on engine 2. And we should see a little ignition icon there, indicating that the ignition has begun, or begun rather. There we go. TGT coming up there. Looks like we got a fuel flow indication. And in addition to the MD-90, right, this is one of the only members of the DC-9 family of aircraft to have turbofan engines. So that's another interesting little bit of trivia about the Boeing 717.
Set parking brakes.
Okay, pushback complete, parking brakes set. There we go. Okay, there we go. Engine is stabilizing, N1 still rising. TGT still coming up. But looks like we had a starter cutout earlier. Okay, as the engine stabilizes here, let's go ahead and start up number 1. Right click to pull the engine start switch, number 1. And let's go ahead and move the, once we have indications here, we'll move the fuel switch to on number 1 as well.
Tow truck disconnected. Bypass pin.
Why isn't it starting up? Start air pressure low. 1 second. What am I missing here? Oh, I know why. Isolation valve. There we go. Let's try this again. At least I think that was it. Let's find out. It's been a while since I started this, like I mentioned. Okay, there we go. Yeah, it was the isolation switch. Totally forgot to move the isolation valve to open. Goes back to auto, I think, once we're done with the engine start. Okay, there we go. N2, oil pressure. 20% N2, I'm going to move the fuel switch into the on position on engine 1. Awesome there, Hazru. Have fun. I hope you enjoy it. Hex2906 says you're now flying the Rotax Falca SF25C. It's really fun to glide. Awesome there. That's super cool. Well, hopefully you enjoy that portion of the stream for sure. It should be in the playlist later on once this video is finished processing and uploading from YouTube here. But so you know, I wouldn't count myself, like I was mentioning earlier there, Hex, as a experienced glider pilot by any stretch of the imagination, and I'm certainly not an expert on Condor either. So it was just sort of an attempt for some of my viewers, or regular viewers rather, who've been interested in a stream in Condor and in gliding, because they hear about my gliding every once in a while. It was just sort of an attempt at giving them a taste of what that's all about. Okay, looks like that engine is stabilizing as well. Good start. Let's go ahead and let's get the APU off. APU generator off, APU master off, APU air off. Packs coming on. Isolation switch to auto. And let's get the nose light at taxi. Landing lights to external off. And let's go through our after start checklist here. Engine anti-ice is required. Air conditioning panel is set. And let's set the flaps here for taxi. Flaps 13. Spoilers armed. There we go. Flight controls. Let's go ahead and check those. Full left. Full right. Full up. Full down. Full left. Full right on the rudder. Flight controls check complete. Stabilizer trim set to 4.9 units. And taxi check is complete. Okay, alright, we're ready to taxi out here. Let's go and get going. Parking brakes released. Let's start taxiing out here. 1 second here, really quick. Let me just check on what is going on in the miscellaneous page. Windshield anti-ice off. Ooh, I'm glad I caught that. Okay, because these not airfoil, but anti-ice on. And these windows can actually fog up, so I'm gonna get the... Do I need to get the anti-fog on? Actually, you know, I probably don't. Just the anti-ice is fine for now. Okay. Alright, so we're all good there. And let's go back to the engine page. Okay, so everything is showing what it needs to show. Okay, let's start taxiing out here. Hazaru, sorry, I missed. DJ, you speak about your gliding, about my gliding every once in a while. That's right, that's right, every once in a while. I'm not sure if I misspoke there. Hex 2906, so I've got I'm not going to say the exact number of glider flights, but I've been gliding for about 4 years now, so not a ton, not a ton. I would not call myself an experienced glider pilot by any stretch of the imagination. I'm also a tow pilot as well in my glider club, so, but I'm not an experienced glider pilot by any stretch of the imagination. Okay, I'm going to start taxiing out here. One thing I should have done, actually, whoops, I should have checked to make sure there's no ATC online. Always a good idea, because you never know what might have changed. Nope, nobody's online. Honolulu traffic, Hawaiian 143, taxiing via Lima Alpha at hold short of 08 left, Honolulu. Okay. Let's see, and Hex, that glider that he mentioned earlier, the one with, oh, not the, actually, it's not a glider, it's an ultralight, right? The one with the Rotax engines.
Honolulu traffic, Hawaiian 137, north ramp, taxi 8 left via Alpha, correction, Lima Alpha, Hawaiian, Honolulu.
Okay, let's just make sure we're clear on the left. Indeed we are. We'll hang a right onto Alpha. This is a super busy taxiway in real life. Probably not these days with coronavirus, but in real life, you've got a ton of airplanes taxiing down here, lining up for takeoff. Let's see, Hex says it's a TGM touring motor glider. Oh, gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. So I've never flown a motor glider in my life, but boy, I gotta tell you, I've been thinking about purchasing an airplane or a glider sometime soon. It's really a tough choice because I've been a powered pilot a lot longer than I've been a glider pilot, and I'm a tailwheel pilot in real life as well. So I want to do a little bit of flying, kind of off field, right? Kind of a little bit of flying in the bush. So I'm very, very strongly leaning towards buying a tailwheel airplane if I do end up buying an airplane. But honestly, if I bought a glider, I would strongly think about buying a motor glider myself because, the benefit of having that engine, right, just the flexibility it gives you, it seems pretty amazing, to be honest. As opposed to kind of waiting for a day when you have a tow pilot and, a tow plane available. The convenience of being able to just start up your own motor, and get airborne, stow the motor away, and do some soaring, just seems pretty amazing. And the people that I know own motor gliders, they seem they really seem to take full advantage of that convenience. So it's something I've been thinking about, getting a motor glider myself if I do end up ever getting a glider, or purchasing a glider rather. Okay, let's go ahead and hold short of 8 left here. We'll do our pre-takeoff checklist. There we go, just holding short of 8 left. Okay, departure runway 8 left verified, flaps 13 degrees set, takeoff briefing completed and verified, brake temperature checked, flight controls free and correct checked, EAD checked. We're just looking at this green bar here. That indicates the airplane is ready for takeoff. Kind of like the, it's a bit like the, what do you call it, the ECAM takeoff memo in the Airbus, except significantly simplified. All it shows you is a green bar to indicate you're all set for takeoff. For the most part. There's still some few things you need to do. Transponder TARA. Make sure I said that. Oops, actually that's the weather. 1 second here. Let me make sure that's set correctly. There we go. That's better. And transponder TARA. Where is that? There it is. Okay. Landing lights coming on. Actually, no slide can be left at taxi. And flight attendants notified. So let's go ahead and notify the flight attendants. Okay, before takeoff, checklist complete. All right, let's go ahead and hide away this iPad here, or this the little mobile screen there, because we don't need that anymore. And there's VX free flight coming up behind us. Let's go ahead and line up and we'll get going here. Just want to make sure that Hex, yes, I have seen a STEMI S10 actually. That's a super awesome airplane for sure. That is the creme de la creme of motor gliders, right? In fact, what was the name of that documentary involving gliders? Cloud Street, that I was talking about earlier. I was actually planning on showing the trailer from Cloud Street on channel, but I totally forgot to when we were loading up P3D. But the STEMI S10 was featured, I believe, in Cloud Street, correct? The glider pilot at Telluride was flying the STEMI S10. That is a super awesome glider for sure. Yeah, and the glide ratio, oh my god, it's amazing considering it's a motor glider. Just how high the performance is. Okay, let's line up here and get going. We're clear on final, and we're clear on the departure side as well. All right, fantastic. Let's line up and get going. Honolulu traffic, Hawaiian 143, lining up for departure runway 08 left, Keola to departure, Honolulu. Okay, all lined up here.
All systems have been alerted to your presence, sir.
There we go. Exclamation mark ATC. And actually, that reminds me real quick. Let me see if I can get the commands function to work. I'm not sure why it isn't working. Give me 1 second here. I'm just very quickly going to do this. Going to go to Profile. Going to go, whoops. Auto flight. There we go. Okay, so now the auto thrust has been armed. And one thing I want to do real quick here, because I'm not sure why the commands, exclamation mark commands was not working. I'm just very quickly going to just double check and make sure that's active. Let me just very quickly go to my CloudBot here. Give me 1 second. That way you folks can play around with all the sound files that we have. That's what they're there for, right? To be played around with. Okay, there we go. Okay, sound commands should now work, or exclamation mark commands should now work, hopefully. So give it a shot. Okay, we're all lined up, ready to go here. Is there a way to start the timer in here? Maybe not. Okay, traffic, and that's all looking good. Okay, let's get going. Okay, let's set takeoff thrust here. Just gonna very quickly bring the throttle levers forward, let the engine stabilize, and then we'll go to takeoff power. Okay, takeoff power
Point of parliamentary
being
procedure.
set.
Screw around. They're serious this time. Take it easy. I'm in pre-law, man.
Thought you pre-med.
What's the difference?
There we go. We got Animal House there. 80 knots, clamp. And we got a crosswind there from the right, or the left rather. The aircraft's trying to weather vane. V1, rotate. Okay, there it is. Positive rate, gear up. And let's go ahead and start a right turn now to heading of 130. And the reason you want to do that right turn right away is because you've got the city of Honolulu directly ahead of us. So this is for noise abatement reasons, right?
Honolulu traffic, Hawaiian 137 taking off runway 8 left, departing northwest, Honolulu.
And VX, you sound like somebody who's very practiced in comms in real life, so I'm kind of curious if you're a power pilot in real life. Okay, there we go. Freeware acceleration altitude. Let's go ahead and speed up here. Okay, let's go ahead and
I tried calling, but they don't have a listing for Mr. Wonderful.
let's go ahead and arm the auto flight system there. And oh boy, the aircraft is gonna, oh, I forgot I set my acceleration altitude to 3,000 feet earlier. So it's gonna be, there we go, now it's gonna accelerate. Should have made sure I set my acceleration altitude to a lower altitude earlier, but that's fine. Okay, we're gonna climb up now to, let's say, all the way up to cruising flight level of 14, or not flight level, or cruising altitude of 14,000. And let me set 14,000 here. Oops. Went right by it. 1 second here. Oh boy. This is super sensitive. Okay, there we go. And I'm gonna go direct to Keola here. Keola, rather. Direct to Keola. There we go. Nav. Alright, proceeding direct Keola. Let's get the flaps up. And let's get the slats up as well. Alright, fantastic. Alright, we're going. And let's get the nose light off as well. Alright, fantastic. Should have gotten the strobes on earlier. Forgot to do that.
Stabilizer motion.
Lights, camera, action, of course. Honolulu traffic, Hawaiian 143. Right turn out here to the west, leaving the area. Honolulu. Okay, up to 14,000, 250 knots. We'll accelerate to...
Stabilizer motion.
We'll accelerate to your climb speed above 10,000 once we're above 10,000, obviously. Okay, go on direct Keola here. Let me increase the
Honolulu
range of the map there.
Hawaiian 137 is 2 miles southeast, proceeding northwest, passing through 4,000 for 14,000. Last call, Honolulu. See you next time.
Awesome. And very, very grateful to you there for flying along, VX. Super awesome to have someone fly along on these flights and VATS them every once in a while. Okay, so obviously I've got Orbx Cityscape Honolulu here. Beautiful, beautiful scenery. Honestly, it rivals Microsoft Flight Simulator. That's how good it is in terms of how accurate it is. But of course, the timing here couldn't be any more perfect. Just as I started talking about the cityscape scenery rather, this cloud kind of came in the way. So once we're on the other side of the cloud, I'm going to talk about it again. Kind of overshot the turn there, but that's fine. Okay, about 10,000 feet here. Landing lights coming off. And let's get the seatbelt sign to auto. Alright, there we go. Alright, after takeoff checklist. Landing gear up. Hydraulic aux transfer pump switches to off.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
There we go.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Flaps takeoff selector up. Flaps up. Flaps takeoff selector stowed, rather, and flaps are up. Spoilers, let's go ahead and disarm the spoilers. Whoops. Okay, that's how you disarm spoilers. Shift slash. And EAD checked. Okay, that's perfect. After takeoff checklist complete, and climb check, landing lights are off. Altimeters, we'll set at 3002 for now. We're not climbing above transition altitude. Alright, fantastic. And unfortunately, these clouds are going to prevent us from getting a good view of Honolulu again. So that was it. And that's Kalialoa rather. John Rogers Field below us. And of course you've got Pearl Harbor over there. This is a beautiful, beautiful island. As I mentioned, I try to come out here every couple of years. Boy, I hope the situation with coronavirus allows us to do it this year during the holiday break, but we'll see. But beautiful, beautiful island for sure. Okay, leveling off here at 14,000, about 500 feet. James 2, that was a World War II airfield way back in the day. So that was a World War II airfield. And of course, at Pearl Harbor you had, oh boy, what was the name of that airport at Pearl Harbor? Skipping my mind right now, but there was like a little field at Pearl Harbor as well. And that's where, some of the airplanes that try to push back, some of the U.S. Army Air Force airplanes that push back against the Japanese attack were based as well. For some reason, it's not coming to mind right now, but I'm sure I'll remember it later. All right, let's see. What else did I miss here? Night Shadow was asking, does the Hawaii paint come with the TFDi 717? Indeed, it does, Night Shadow. So it's one of the official repaints from TFDi. I think you have to, just like with FS Labs, right? You have to download it from the TFDi website once you've purchased the airplane. But this repaint does come with the TFDi 717 on the TFDi website, and it's beautiful, by the way. This is the most recent, update this is the most recent livery update from Hawaiian. So they didn't used to have the the gray sort of flower pattern, the lay pattern there on the fuselage itself, but the most recent update had that. So that's super cool. I really do like the changes they've made to the livery. I think it looks beautiful. And of course, the actual hula girl, or the girl back there on the tail, that's been refreshed as well. So I think that's been modernized a little bit as well. So this is a beautiful, beautiful livery, though. Probably one of my favorite liveries ever. Modern liveries. All right, so we're at 14,000 feet. We're coming up on our top of descent here in just a short 33 miles. That's super quick. Who would have thunk, right? But that's super quick. Okay, so we're coming up at our top of descent here very, very quickly. And probably want to do our approach briefing here in a hurry. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and roll my altitude selector here down to the altitude at Morke, where we'll intercept the ILS 35. That's 3,000 feet. And I'm going to set my altimeter here for Lihue Airport in a second. It's let me get the METAR Lihue. The identifier is PHLI. Okay, wind still 060 at 11 knots, visibility 10 statute miles, clouds scattered at 4,000, temperature 29, dew point 22, altimeter is 3006. So let me set 3006 there in the altimeter. Okay, fantastic. And let's go ahead and brief the approach plate here for the ILS 35. Okay, actually, let's do the... So from Napua, no procedure turn required, onto Morka. Let's go ahead and make sure we got all the waypoints in here correctly. Napua onto Morka, or Mork, I don't know how I pronounce that exactly, at 3,000 feet, onto Akula. That's the final approach point, crossed at 9,900 feet, that's correct. And then down the glide slope we go. Decision altitude is 296 feet. Visibility minimum is half statute mile. Okay. And let's go to the NAVRAD page here and make sure that we've got the ILS tuned in. Frequency 110.9. And CRS is 349, final approach course. There we go. Okay. All right, got that in. Airport elevation 153 feet. MSA is within 25 nautical miles of the Lihue WOR. 6,500 feet to the northwest. 3,500 feet everywhere else. In case we need to go missed, we're going to climb to 600 feet on runway heading, then a climbing right turn to 3,000 feet outbound on the Lihue radial 070. Continuing on to Crean at 12 DME and hold there as published. So we're going to hold right turns to the hold inbound in the 250 course to Crean. All right, circling not authorized at night, and use the ILIH DME when on localizer course. Okay, and we're going to land flaps, let's see, flaps 40 today. There is no auto brake in this airplane, and our final approach speed is going to be, let's see, 133 knots, and we're going to land on 3.5, so we're going to exit on Delta. If we can make Delta, we'll exit on Echo and then taxi via Delta Hotel, correction, sorry, Delta Juliet to the terminal. So that's our plan. And once again, I'm sorry I couldn't show you the charts here, but kind of worried about GPU out-of-memory issues potentially with this add-on. Let me set my decision altitude here real quick. 269 feet. Here we go, 270, that's close enough. And I'm going to catch up on chat as we come up on our top of descent here. The aircraft should automatically initiate a descent once we hit the top of descent point. So fingers crossed that that in fact does happen. Let's see, is it going to happen? Is it going to happen? I'm not sure. Let's see. Whoops, yeah. Sim pause there. There we go. Okay, yeah, perfect. We're descending via the computer descent profile. This, although I gotta tell you, the TFDi 717 tends to descend at a super fast rate, I've noticed. It seems abnormally high. But then again, I've never flown, I've never obviously been in the flight deck of a real 717, but it seems kind of high initially. Anyway, that's all good. Let's get the seatbelts on here. Let's do our descent check. Altimeter is 3006, cross-checked. Minimum's 296 feet, or correction, 269 feet rather. Wait, hold on a second. Is it 269 or is it? It's 296 actually. Glad I caught that. Okay, there we go. That's close enough. 300 feet. So 300 feet set. And let's continue through the descent checklist here. Landing data verified. Approach briefing completed. Hydraulic, aux and transfer switches coming on. Ice protection set and seat belts coming on. Descent check is complete. Okay, approach checked. Flight and navigation instruments verified. Cabin notification completed. Let's get the cabin notified that we're going to be landing soon. And altimeter is 3006 set and cross-checked. Okay, approach check completed as well. Okay, and as we're coming up on 10,000 feet here, let's go ahead and get the landing lights on. There we go. Alright, fantastic. Descending through some clouds here, trying to get the speed brakes out in order to slow down below 250 knots by the time we hit 10,000. The autopilot logic on this airplane isn't exactly the best, I've noticed. But hey, what can you do? Alright, let's see. What else did I miss in chat here? Blim Blim says you love delivery. Absolutely. Silver, absolutely. Silver, I'm sorry I missed your question earlier about flying in the Azores. I do want to get back to that. I'm going to get back to your question in once we land, perhaps. But I do want to do a bit of sim flying in the Azores for sure. That's a beautiful island chain in the Atlantic. I definitely want to do a bit of sim flying there for sure at some point in a future stream or a future video. VX Free Flight Productions was saying you do not have your PPL, but you have 40 hours logged in the 172, as well as all your night and cross-country training. That's awesome, VX, but you could have fooled me, man. Your radio calls made you sound like a super experienced pilot for sure. To me, you sounded like someone who was super proficient flying around a lot of busy Class Bravo, Class Charlie, or something like that. But that's super awesome that you got that kind of time, though. And hopefully you're still continuing working towards that PPL there, VX. Let's see, what else did I miss here? Night Shadow, no problem, take your time. Lokestar was asking, have I had a problem with dark wing textures? So it takes a while sometimes there, Lokestar, when I'm around some really complex scenery, for the airplane textures to load up when I switch views. So if I switch from the cockpit to the outside view there, it takes a little while for the textures to load up, unfortunately. That's just the way it is, unfortunately. So there you go. Okay, continuing our descent here. Let's see, let's go to the rad nav page, or nav rad page rather. Always hated when they reverse these on us, right? So Airbus calls it rad nav, Boeing and McDonnell Douglas call it navrad. So there you go. They need to be they need to make it clear that they have different viewpoints on things, right? They see the world upside down. Hex was asking, what's the ETE? Hex, oh boy, probably another 5 to 10 minutes from now. We're very, very close. We're super close, and it's starting to rain. It's starting to rain. We've got Hawaii, of course, is famously a land of microclimates. And we've got a little bit of a rain shower here that we're flying through. Ravnad. There you go, James 2. As if it wasn't complicated enough. Let's add another another way of saying it into the mix. Antone Beckers, hi to you again as well. Welcome. Hope you're doing well. Let's see, what else did I miss here? VX says all except some solo training due to some FAA doc mix-up. Oh, I'm sorry to hear about that. VX, that's, yeah, so, you know, yeah, document mix-ups are the worst. Because you're there, basically, you're ready to go, right? And then something like that comes up and you're like, holy cow. You know, that really sucks. Okay, let's go to managed speed mode here, or selected speed mode, rather. And I'm going to slow down to 180 knots. There we go. So let's slow down here a little bit. Let's get the speed brake out to help us slow down. Oops, a little bit of a sim stutter there. Sometimes when the FSDT sceneries, I've noticed there's like a 3 to 4 second stutter. This is especially notorious, by the way, in at LAX, where FSDT's LAX scenery, those 4 to second stutters, 3 to 4 second stutters at LAX, oh my god, they're terrible. Okay, I have indeed added drag. There we go. Let's see, what else did I miss here? James 2 was asking, I think that's it, James 2. I think it was Hickam Air Force Base. I think that was the Air Force Base at Pearl Harbor. Yeah, I think that was it, if I'm not mistaken. That was probably it. Okay, let's get flaps 1 there. Or slats extend, rather, not flaps 1. So slats are being extended. Speed brakes are still out. And there's another one of these notorious stutters, unfortunately. Lokestar was saying, no, you mean even when fully loaded the aircraft it loads with dark wings textures, you send them a ticket about 2 weeks ago, no response yet. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Hear about there, Lokestar. Yeah, I don't think I've had that problem, thankfully. I don't think I've had that problem. Okay, let's go ahead and arm approach here. There we go. Approach mode is armed. Okay, let's go flaps 13 there. And we'll slow down to 180 knots, hopefully. Alright, hopefully we'll capture the glide slope there once we come up on Mork. And let me go ahead and make a radio call here. Lihue traffic, Hawaiian 143 is Lihue traffic, Hawaiian 143 is 12 miles to the south. Inbound in the ILS 35 Lihue. Okay, let's go ahead and arm the speed brake there. And there, I think we're catching, yeah, there we go. We're catching some glimpses of the beautiful island of Kauai.
Pretty good.
There we go. There we go. Lokestar with a pretty good. That's what the sound effects are there for, right? They're there so that you can use them. I'm gonna get this out of our system right now because I'm gonna get this out of our system right now.
I got a bad feeling about this.
You always need that, right? Okay, localizer capture and glide slope capture as well.
Hawaii traffic, Hawaiian 137 is passing 6. Napla, south about 5 miles, establishing for ILS 35. Any traffic activity, please advise.
Okay, fantastic. 180 knots on the ILS 35 here. We're about 10 miles out. I'm going to make a radio call when we're 6 miles out. And then I'll make another radio call possibly on short final, but quite likely not. Usually, you know, if it's kind of if it's a day where there's not a lot of traffic, you know, announcing 6 miles out in a fast jet like this one is you know, usually enough. If there's other traffic in the pattern or something, I'd probably go do another radio call at about 3 miles out. Okay, here we go on the glide slope localizer. And once we're about 6 miles out here, I'm going to go ahead and slow down to our landing speed. Approach speed was, let's see, 133. Okay. Okay, there's a runway.
Hasta la vista, baby.
There we go. James 2, are you leaving already? Okay, we'll see you later, James 2, if that's the case. Thanks for hanging out with us. But beautiful scenery here for sure. David Dempster was saying, you can't call it that. That name is right copied. And James 2, in his wisdom, says, I see what you did there. Indeed, there you go. Okay, let's go to FMS speed here. Let's slow down to our landing approach speed. Gear coming down. And let's go flaps to 18 degrees there. There's another one of these infamous stutters. Boy, I hope these don't continue. Lihue traffic, Hawaiian 143, type 717, 6 mile final, runway 35, Lihue. Okay, let's go flaps 25. And let's go flaps full. All right, let's do our landing checklist here. Landing gear down, 3 green. Flaps 40 degrees set. Spoilers armed, and EAD checked, green bar is showing. So landing checklist complete. All right. And I'm going to take it off autopilot here in just a second. Let's go ahead and pull up the yoke there, because the autopilot disconnect switch is right there. Actually, let's see if...
autopilot.
Let's see if... Oh, that worked just fine. Okay, I can use the Z button to do that. Okay, autopilot is off. It's a good opportunity as any to use exclamation mark autopilot. All right, let's go ahead and bring this in for a landing here. Famous Flame 805, welcome on board. Hope you're doing well. Famous Flame 805, the answer is absolutely not. I am not going to touch that thing. I think...
Ahoy traffic, Hawaiian 137 is established ILS 35, 8 miles, number 2 for landing.
Oh boy, another one of these stutters.
Traffic activity, please advise.
FSDT sceneries are just absolutely terrible and notorious for these stutters, I've noticed. I think it's FSDT Volume 1 there, Night Shadow. I think that's what it is. The volume that included Kauai. But Famous Flame, absolutely not. I am not going to touch the new Microsoft Flight Simulator. I've already made up my mind on it. I think it's a severely limited simulator, so I'm not going to touch it. I'm being sarcastic, by the way. I wish I had a /S when I'm talking, but I'm being sarcastic. Of course I'm going to fly it. I'm going to fly it plenty. I'm going to do a full checkout flight video on it. I'm super excited for it for
Minimum.
sure. Okay. Let's see if you can plant it right on the center line here. Nice crosswind there from the right.
50, 40, 30, 20, 10, 5.
Touchdown. James Stu, you had... Oh, I gotta get my nose wheel down. Oh boy, oh boy. We're not gonna make Delta. We're not gonna make Delta. I landed far too long there. I forgot that in this aircraft you gotta get the nose wheel down before the reversers will come out. So, there we go. Okay. Alright, we're gonna make Echo. We have to use full length there. I'm sorry. See, this is what happens when you focus more on being sarcastic and trying to be funny than just focusing on flying the airplane. All right, let's exit here on Echo. Lihue traffic, Hawaiian 143 is clear. The active, Lihue.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
There you go. Perfect timing.
Hawaiian 137 on final runway 35. Any traffic activity, please advise.
All right, let's get the speed brake back in. And I'm going to leave the aircraft and landing configuration here for the replay, obviously, right? So we'll do that. Okay, and I'll taxi via Delta here.
Excellent.
There you go. There you go. There's lots of fun to be had with the new sound effects for sure. All right. Lihue traffic, Hawaiian 143 taxiing across runway 3 on Delta to the terminal, Lihue. Okay, and whoops, let's make sure we catch VX landing there. There we go. There is VX coming in. As soon as we cross the runway, I'll try to switch to him as quickly as I can. I don't think we're going to be able to catch it before he lands, unfortunately. All right, there we go. We're across. I'm going to come to a stop here on the other side of the whole short line. And let's see if we can actually catch his landing. There we go. Perfect. That worked out nicely. Ben Montgomery, welcome, Ben. Hope you're doing well. Sorry I didn't see you earlier. Nice landing there. And by the way, for those of you who didn't catch it earlier, I think VX was saying this was his own sort of freeware 717 that he's developing. So that's super awesome if that's the case. And that was a nice landing there, VX. Super cool. Okay, let's go ahead and taxi in here. Continuing on Delta to Juliet. Actually, wait a second. Is this Juliet? Yeah, this is Juliet. So we'll hang our left here onto Juliet, and we'll taxi the terminal right there. Let me get my weather radar off here. Just give me 1 second. But Ben, how is life treating you? Hope you're doing fantastic. Thanks for hanging out with us today. How is the sim training going there, Ben? So Ben was Ben used to be an Embraer, like an E-Jet pilot for Logan Air. He's now training on the A320 actually in real life, and Ben is currently. If you don't mind me sharing this, Ben, actually let me know if I'm oversharing. But Ben is
traffic. Hawaiian 137 is vacated. Active.
Oops.
35 via Delta. Any traffic activity, please advise.
Okay. Ben is currently doing a sim training in the A320, so that's super cool. All right, right on Kilo here, and we'll taxi to the terminal. I could have turned right on Juliet, but I don't think the direction that you want to park at the gates from accommodates that, so that's why I was taxiing in this way. Okay, all right, and we'll just pick a gate here and we'll park. This is a beautiful airport, by the way. I love the little artwork at some of the gates. That looks pretty cool. That looks kind of neat.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Hazaru, no worries. Hey, thanks a lot there, Hazaru. Welcome, or not welcome, but thanks for hanging out with us today, and we'll see you next time. You take care. Thanks for hanging out with us for sure. Okay, we'll park here, and then we'll check out some replays.
Point of parliamentary procedure. Don't screw around. They're serious this time. Take it easy. I'm in pre-law, man.
Did I miss a question? By the way, exclamation mark inquiries in case I missed a question, right? Because I tend to miss a lot of chat.
Hawaiian 137 taxiing the gate via Delta.
A little too far forward there, but that's fine.
3 and 12 traffic activity, please advise.
All right, let's see. Let's see. What else did I miss here? Ben Montgomery says, you'll send the pics, but you saw the Antonov 225 today at Presswick. That is awesome, Ben. Whoa. That is super cool. That is super cool. And I'm doing great, Ben. Thanks for asking. I'm doing fantastic. And let's see. And I think I said, famous flame, I was so busy being sarcastic earlier that I landed long and almost ran off the runway. But yes, to your question, I'm totally going to be playing the new Microsoft Flight Simulator for sure. That's right, David. We had to use full length there. Hashtag family stream. There you go. You know, what is that old Russian saying, right? That old Russian saying, in Soviet Russia, we pay for full runway, we get full runway, right? That's what they say in Russia. So I figured we had to bring a little bit of that to Hawaii, right? So there you go. Okay. All right. Okay, folks, say goodbye to VX Free Flight. We'll check out some replays. But VX, hey, thank you so much for flying along with us. And I will make sure for sure to check out that freeware development that you have going on with the 717. And I'd recommend folks in chat give VX a follow on his YouTube channel. It looks like he's got some videos up of his freeware development there. I think it's always a good idea in the flight sim community to support developers and especially freeware developers who do this in their own free time without any guarantee of monetary reward. You know, I strongly recommend supporting developers like that. So VX, we strongly look forward to your development of the 717 for sure. Okay, I'm going to sign off VATSIM here, folks. There's VX right there. Say goodbye to him. Thank you so much for flying along with us, VX. That was super fun. I'm going to sign off VATSIM here. That way we can check out some replays. And let's hop into some replays here. Okay, there's ChasePlane, replay, show playback window. Let's check it out. So the exclamation mark bourbon rather. So bourbon is probably, that's my favorite hard liquor, to be honest. Although, that, I think that quote came from 2010, A Space Odyssey. But the same guy who plays Captain Brody on Jaws plays the lead character, Dr. Floyd, in 2010: A Space Odyssey, and that was a clip from that. Speaking of space, how about the return of our astronauts Doug and Bob today on the Dragon capsule Endeavour? That was super cool. So we, for the first time in decades, right? For the first time since the Apollo-Soyuz missions, or Skylab, way back in the day, for the first time in forever, you know, we've heard the words splashdown in the United States. So that's super cool that we finally had a splashdown. And they're back to Earth safely, and hopefully there's a lot more SpaceX missions coming down soon. Yeah, totally a very calm ocean here. It's surprisingly calm considering, you know, what the winds are doing. The winds are really kicking up here. So obviously the new Microsoft Flight Simulator will not have those limitations, right? That worked out nicely, actually. And that's unfortunately an artifact of the ChasePlane replay system. It actually... I guess that wasn't that long of a landing. I think what I should have done was just gotten on the brakes a bit earlier, but it wasn't that long of a landing, to be honest. I touched down well within the touchdown zone. I think I was just a bit slow to get the nose gear down, because the thrust reversers on the 717 will not deploy until the nose wheel is down, and I was a bit slow to get on the brakes, because there's no auto brake. So that's the reason we use full length there. So there we go. Lokestar was asking, although I wonder how come the short stay in space. Lokestar, that was because it was just a proving flight, right? It was just a flight to prove out and test out all the systems on the Dragon crew capsule. So I'm sure the next flight might be a bit longer. Although, you know, my guess is, right, what's going to happen with the next flight? The next flight will just be a crew replacement mission to replace the current expedition at the International Space Station. That's my guess, at least. So that next flight, my guess is what's going to happen is they're going to dock with the space station, change crews, however long that takes, and when the new crew takes charge, the old crew is going to come back not long after. That's my guess for what happens for the next mission, although I could be wrong. You know, I'm not sure what the mission profile is for the next mission exactly, but I think that's what it is. Okay, let's do a tower view here, and let's see what that looked like. All right, let's bring it back to about there. Let's check this out. And then we'll do some Bing views and things like that. Ben Montgomery also says, also getting based at Edinburgh too, which is a major plus. Awesome, Ben. That is fantastic. So that way you don't have to venture too far afield from Scotland. That's super cool, Ben. That is super awesome to hear. That's super cool. Ben, do you have a start date yet when you're done with your training? Boy, that was a super soft landing. Although I'm not sure why we had a stutter just there. But that was a super soft landing for sure. That worked out quite nicely. But Ben, do you have a start date yet? Night Shadow was asking, is there a good tutorial with the TFDi 717? That's a good question, Night Shadow. I don't know. I did a full flight video in the 717 on my channel from in Australia, actually, from Ayers Rock to Alice Springs in the outback in Australia. So, you know, my videos, right? Usually my full flight videos, I try to provide as much detail as possible in order to make that kind of similar to a tutorial. If not, even if I don't call it a tutorial, it has enough information and detail in there to be close to a tutorial. So hopefully that video can help you out. I'm sure, though, that somebody on YouTube must have done a good tutorial for the TFDi 717. And worst case scenario, if you don't mind slogging through all the blabbing and gossip and totally unrelated to actual flying stuff that went on in this flight, you're more than welcome to watch the VOD of this stream. And if it helps you, good for you. So that's another option too there, Night Shadow. David Dempster was saying, would the crew already up there at present know how to control the Dragon, though? Oh, that's a good question, David. I don't know. That's a great question, actually. But, you know, so the Soyuz capsules that they currently return to Earth from, or currently return to Earth on, rather, the Soyuz capsules, you know, I think require a amount of training, and they're all trained on that, right? So I could imagine... Oh, okay, so, yeah, I know what you mean. So future crews, right, will probably be trained on how to operate the crew capsule, the SpaceX capsule, the way they're trained to work the Soyuz capsule. But as of right now, yeah, you're right. Probably the current crew may not know that. That's a good point. My guess is, you know, if they do decide to bring back some members of the current crew, they'll probably, you know, So the Dragon capsule can seat 4 people. So they'll probably have at least one person in the Dragon capsule. As I do another replay here, they'll probably have at least one person in the Dragon capsule who knows how to operate it, if they do decide to bring the crew back on the next mission, or the current ISS crew back on the next mission. That's my guess anyway. Okay, let's see. We want to do a wing view. Let's do this side. Let's see what this looks like. Actually, one second. What other options do we have? That's a pretty nice view. And there's our stutter once again, 3 to 4 seconds. It's like clockwork, never fails to happen, right? That stutter is still there. There we go. Finally got out of the stutter. Let's do this view. And yeah, that's the other thing too, is the operation is mostly automatic on the Dragon capsule too, right? It's a touch screen. There's no, like traditional flight controls like a joystick or a yoke or a joystick or a throttle column or anything like that. It's a very, very traditional, it's a very, very modern, touchscreen based, interface with completely autonomous, steering and controls. I think the deorbit burn today and the actual re-entry were all automatic today. Boy, look at that. That worked out quite nicely. You see how slowly that shadow came up to meet us there. That worked out really, really nicely. Okay. We'll do a couple of last replays here. One in this view, and then we'll do one final replay and call it a day. Let me catch up on chat here. Ben was saying, as I said before, you're flying through training and a week ahead of schedule, so you got 1 week off left in the sim, then off to line training live in 2 weeks, so then I guess. That is awesome, Ben. That's fantastic. Congratulations. Very, very much looking forward to that happening. Night Shadow, absolutely. Those cliffs are something else for sure. Lokestar, totally. That is a perfect description of it. It is basically a Tesla with actually, it's not a solid rocket booster. This is a completely... there's no solid rocket engines on the Falcon 9. It's a completely what do you call it? It's a liquid fuel engine, right? So there's no there's no solid fuel anywhere. It's all liquid fuel. But I know what you mean, though. It is basically a Tesla on a rocket. That's basically what it is. It's super advanced for sure. Boy, that worked out really nicely. Let's see. If this is a good opportunity to show off. And actually, I'm really surprised that we haven't used this one yet, right? Let's see. I wanted to pull this one up. This is from Seinfeld, of course. We had far too much fun with this.
Totally inappropriate. Smooth, lascivious, salacious, outrageous.
When you feel like something is a little too over the top on stream, feel free to use !outrage. And of course, we've got... I'm surprised we didn't use this one.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
All right. Man, that's super awesome to hear, though, that how fast training has gone. And boy, I gotta tell you, I'm looking forward when we do Airbus streams in the future to have you with all that knowledge and wisdom that you've accumulated in type coming into stream to let us know how we're doing. And by the way, speaking of which, Ben has a Twitch channel of his own. It's B_simming on Twitch. Feel free to give Ben a follow on Twitch. Ben is currently a real-world A320 pilot in training, and I think we're all looking forward, Ben, when you have the time, of course. Too much going on right now, obviously, but when you have the time in real life, we're much looking forward to any streams you have featuring the A320 or the Airbus series of aircraft on your channel. When you get the time to stream later. Let's see. Lokestar, thanks for that. I keep forgetting to do that. Yes, I do want to do the Soup Nazis. No soup for you. I totally want to do that. There's so many good opportunities to use that, right? I totally want to do that next time. I'm gonna put that sound effect in for sure. I know I missed a ton in chat here from earlier. Let's see. VX says that was actually your first ever legit flight with a 717. Had a blast. Thanks. Absolutely, VX. You're more than welcome. Anytime I fly and do these streams, I try to make my streams as interactive as possible. Honestly, these streams are as much for my own entertainment as they are for the folks who tune in. we don't have busy streams on my channel. My videos, are relatively popular. My full flight videos. Although I think with the coronavirus thing, honestly, YouTube has been tapering off views and things like that recently. But my streams, in comparison to my videos, are not as popular. They're relatively, we get a relatively small group of people attending. But I kind of like it that way. I kind of prefer it that way. I can spend a bit more time interacting with folks and having a good time myself, and meeting people who have interesting perspectives on aviation and flight sim, and talking to them. And it's always cool to have developers like you, especially freeware developers who put in the work to develop these fantastic add-ons, join in and chat with us and hang out with us a little bit. So whenever I do these streams, I'm more than happy to have folks fly along if I'm on VATSIM, or folks who are on Pilot Edge, who have a Pilot Edge subscription. When I fly on Pilot Edge, you're more than welcome to fly along too. So thank you for agreeing to fly along. That was super fun for sure. And it's always nice to have somebody with the radio demeanor that you have fly along. That was super cool for sure. Okay, folks, I am going to call it an afternoon here. We've been streaming for about 3 hours and 20 minutes, so let me go ahead and pull up some replay music, and we're going to call it a day here. Let's see. What do we want to play today? Oh boy. 1 second. Just trying to figure out what to pull up. 1 second. Okay, let's go with... Actually, let's pull up some... never mind, not that. Never mind. Sorry, I didn't have something pre-picked here, so I was just trying to pick something on the fly, so to speak. Okay, so a little bit more broke for free here, and we're going to call it an evening, or an afternoon rather. Before I start the replay music, let me very quickly make sure I didn't miss anything I shouldn't have missed in chat. I know I missed a ton earlier, so let me very quickly go back through here, see what I missed. Ben was saying you will definitely be helping us guys out. Hopefully be doing some joint flights when you can. You were doing a lot of flying in the sim the other day too in Iceland for practice. That's awesome there, Ben. That's super funny, but it's super awesome. Yeah, we're totally going to look forward to that, Ben. Much looking forward to having you join us when you have time. And best wishes for the continued sim training and the line training in a couple of weeks. And boy, we can't wait to see you, Ben, in the cockpit of an A320 soon. It's amazing the twists and turns life takes, doesn't it, Ben? Because I remember, what it was like just a few short weeks ago. And I've been in that situation myself, by the way, without getting into the nitty-gritty and the details in life. I've been in a similar situation in life at one point, and it's super amazing how things can turn around sometimes, and how quickly things can turn around and turn for the better. So super glad to see someone as awesome and as friendly and as super cool as you, Ben, get this super nice opportunity in life, and we're super looking forward to having you continue to join us as you fly the Airbus. James, too, absolutely. Thank you for joining us, James. Always nice to have you join us on the streams. And I'm super glad folks enjoyed the gliding for sure. David Dempster, you as well. Always glad to have you on board, David. And other Scotsmen on channel, but always glad to have you join us as well, David. Ben, you as well. And Night Shadow. Absolutely, Night Shadow. That was super cool for sure. Aloha to you, Night Shadow. Mahalo for hanging out today. And yeah, it's super cool for sure. It does bring back memories of Apollo, doesn't it? It totally does bring back memories of Apollo. That is so cool. Okay, I wanted to bring it back to right about there, let's say. And 1 second here while while the sim stutters a little bit before the replay starts. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and start some replay music here.
Hasta la vista,
and
baby.
Those of you that hung out today, super awesome hanging out with all of you. Hope you enjoyed the stream. Hope you enjoyed a little taste of Soaring in Condor from a very non-experienced glider pilot and Condor pilot for that matter, but hope you enjoyed it. And hope you enjoyed our little flight in Hawaii. This was super fun and super awesome. I probably will be streaming once again midweek, one of the weeknights. We might do a little bit of flying in Asia Pacific for a change, as opposed to back stateside. So we might do some flying in Papua New Guinea or Australia midweek. And then next weekend, we'll probably do another stream on Sunday as usual, or Saturday. We'll figure that out next weekend. Actually, wait, I've got an idea for next weekend. Next weekend, we're probably going to be doing a live stream flight to Antarctica from Christchurch. So that should be a ton of fun. So that's my plan for next weekend. We'll hope to catch you all then. Hope to catch some of you midweek. And in the meantime, you all have a great rest of your week. Have a great rest of your Sunday. And thanks for hanging out. Stay safe, stay healthy, all of you. Take care. Thanks for hanging out. Bye-bye.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
Trusting every aspect of our lives to a giant computer was the smartest thing we ever did.